Clips.
And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell. I'm on the two, a three, a four, I'm Italian. Righty boob tubes, another one of Clips. Welcome to your daily fix of the Daily PoliTITS. If you like politics but are sick of the tits, then tune in most mornings about 9 o'clock-ish for your daily fix of the Daily PoliTITS. It's like a political, it's meant to be an entertainment political satire show for Neds and Chavs alike. So if you do enjoy shit like that, and you want to laugh at the pish, while staying informed, some would say the most informed in the fucking universe, but well, tune in Monday to Friday. So morning, Gigi and Doberman. Today's poll, kind of off topic. Anyway, before I go to the poll, but the poll's up there if you want to read it in the comments. But the format of the show, very simple. Go round as many English-speaking talking holes as I can find, and suggestions are welcome. And compare notes, just to get a flavour of what. They might not tell you what you think, but they'll tell you what you think about. The Illuminati, that is. And then we can compare notes to see, amongst talking holes, to see the different flavour of shit they're trying to feed you that day. So, Sky News has funny dogs and shit, so we'll definitely go there. What time are we at? Still got a couple of minutes to burn. But make sure everything's rolling. And just try and catch. Right, that looks like it's heading to the top of the hour. Oh, they've got their DVR back. Right. These ones are always a pain in the arse, so get them stopped. These are all the talking holes. BBC, Sky News, Al Jazeera, RT, Press TV, the German Wave, DW, France 24. Should be muted. This is, but I've not realised how good this is, because it's like unashamedly far right wing. Rupert Murdoch's fucking bullcrap, and it's just quite funny because I say obviously they're out there to crucify people ahead of the election cycle. Right, so I can try and catch up with these live later. Let's go to Sky News first. I'm thinking.
Rishi Sunak's comments.
It's Thursday, the 6th of June, D-Day.
Dan's tax.
Morning,
Cool stories first.
8 years since the D-Day landings that marked the start of the end of World War II. We're live in Normandy. We're expecting to hear from Rishi Sunak.
We'll also hear from some of the veterans.
Those white folks coming over here.
The Prime Minister and Labour
I think
leader
that's what the
will join
Germans were
today's
saying.
events as the fallout from their tax row continues. The Work and Pensions Secretary has told this programme he stands by Rishi Sunak's comments.
It's Thursday, the 6th of June, D-Day.
Here comes a hailing granny, two big tits and a hairy fanny.
Landings on what became known as the longest day.
Oh wow, man.
Sadness.
Went in my bed early, woke up with hunters asleep, and I woke up in the most stupid mood.
For the achievements.
Good one, right enough.
Also ahead, Hamas says dozens have been killed in an airstrike on a UN school sheltering displaced Palestinians.
Yeah.
Israel says the compound
well,
is being used
that's
by a
over.
militant group.
Forgot about the dead babies and bodies. I thought we'd just need to put up with old guys trying to sell us war with Russia.
Investigated by the UK's statistics watchdog. The minister
No,
this morning
what a
told us
pile of shite.
completely unfounded.
What a pile of shite.
Utterly wrong.
You guys are just
but the
doubling
reason
down, aren't
why
you? Everyone's against you. You're doubling down
we're
on
standing.
this.
We've always had the same position on this.
Following the money, we reveal which constituencies are being targeted most by online political ads.
Poof, 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 poof. I once got flung out a nightclub for singing that to a bar woman. I mean, well out of order. Where's my freedom of speech? But I wanted to say, where's my freedom?
It was on this morning, 80 years ago, that more than 150,000 Allied troops landed by air and sea on the beaches of Normandy in northern France. It was the biggest seaborne invasion in military history. One
We
that
need
would
to stop
eventually
these
be
small
liberated
boats.
from Nazi occupation.
How
ending
times
World
are
War II.
changing.
Well, D-Day was a long and costly campaign, and one that remains permanently etched in the memories of those who were there, as our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons reports.
It was the day the world
Half an hour, I need to go.
Before dawn on the morning of
No worries,
6th of June
Doberman, man, you going?
1944,
That
Allied
looks
forces
nice.
began the largest amphibious operation in
Brun
history.
grannies are normal grannies.
The start of the liberation of France and Western Europe, the catalyst for victory over Nazi Germany. Over 150,000 men from the Allied forces landed
Grannies and
along the
babies can
Normandy
ruin your
coastline.
day morning.
And now some of those soldiers are back, memories and emotions intact after 8 decades.
It never goes out of your mind that it's there all the time.
That's you, John.
Yeah, when I was 19.
Right, hats off to all these old gents, man. It's horrible how this is now getting used to. I'll be honest, I've been fanning about doing other things, making thumbnails and laughing at them this morning. But I think it's scandalous how this war, that war is now getting used to sell as this war. But it is. And they're using it in the context, this is the war that we need to learn from. Now we've got it on our doorstep. You're like, what the fuck?
Graves have been lit by candles. Today they will be remembered by nations still feeling a
In the
sense of
time
deep
spectrum,
gratitude.
Barry?
President Macron will be joined by
In the
Joe
TP?
Biden and
No.
other leaders.
In the
as they
TS?
converge to remember
TP.
and give thanks, but also to wonder what
Time
lessons really
spectrum.
have been learned. Arlette was a 4-year-old girl on D-Day. Her home.
Oh, she
the
looks like a
cafe
right
next to
lady, doesn't she?
Pegasus Bridge. It was the first
Oh,
building
that
to
looked
be
pretty cool.
liberated, and she still runs it. She's aghast that war rages again in Europe.
Oh, is
I
that?
will never learn. The war started from the Middle Ages.
See, I told you,
and before.
boom. Boom! How long's that? Fucking fuck you, 5 minutes? Less than what the fuck? So let me check. Like 3 or 4 minutes in, it took them to fucking start referring to war in Europe. Right, hold on a second, right? Now, I remember doing this not too long ago and I think I proved myself wrong. Right, where the fuck is this shithole Ukraine? Is that fucking Europe? You know what I mean? Well, it does border Poland, but it borders even Poland, man. You met those people? Oh man. Anyway, potato. They're saying it's the continent of Europe. I still scratches my nut how Russia and Israel are considered to be Europe. And I mean that in the footballing sense, because that's where I learned my geography from. Football. I'm not even joking. Anyway, let's get back to selling us this war with another war and dripping all the poor stories of all these individuals who were you fucker, who were unfortunate enough to live through that shit.
What is very sad is that the young people of today, whether they are families or the soldiers, are risking their lives again for freedom.
This is where D-Day started. Just after midnight,
Bagpipes,
troops
we rule the
landed
world.
near here to liberate Pegasus Bridge, and people have come from all over the world to mark the occasion. But the number of veterans is falling. There'll never be another commemoration like this one. There was a sense of camaraderie here.
How are we going to fuck? Quick, use them before, use them to propagate this war before stop, drop and do indeed. In fact, hold on, sir. You know how to hold a rifle? Right, front line, you can sign up for Ukraine. You want to top up your pension that's going to get raped at this general election? We can send you to the front line of the Ukraine. Maybe some of the Ukrainians are in there recruiting right now. Oh, there's a good one. Perfect place for Zelensky. Here, send this to RT. They'll use this. See, this will even be allowed on TikTok. Zelensky spotted recruiting at D-Day celebrations. Oh, I actually think that's quite funny. Zelensky and the Ukrainian army spotted recruiting at the D-Day celebrations. Fuck's sake. I'm not even half drunk for the night before or anything, man.
And then fireworks to mark the moment when the first troops landed. The battles and triumphs that followed still shape all of our lives. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Normandy.
Still shape all of our lives. I just can't keep dragging up with that, right? We need to fucking go to war with Russia because of the Nazis. Huh? I thought Russia battered the Nazis. No! No! Well, yeah, but no!
So, of course, there's Emmanuel Macron.
See, that guy looks like an elf or something.
On their way. This is the British Normandy Memorial, where they are making preparations for a service which will be led by the King and Queen. As I speak to you, you can see there the band just about
fucking quite like a marching band that almost makes you want to march.
Despite all of these dignitaries, I think everybody here agrees that the stars.
Would you believe I used to be in a marching band? Not very much, right enough, but I was there.
Who have made their way out at the age of 99, 100.
I think I still own the instrument. I'm not even sure of the name. I think it's still under the spells.
Gold beaches just over there. And in the past few months, some of those have arrived. And I spoke with one of them, Alec Penstone, a man I met a year ago at the 79th anniversary. He looked pretty vibrant then, and he looked very well now when Alec and I caught up here with some of his memories and some of his emotions on this very important and very emotional day.
Hey.
But at the present moment,
really?
But in desperate need of a cup of coffee.
All right, well, let me, before you get your coffee, just tell me, what 80th anniversary?
They'll need to pre-record this and all that in case the old boys see it and that the fucking modern day world can't handle it.
99, and that was the first thing. And when I was sent out to the Far East, I didn't think I was coming back anyway. So consequently, this is all a bonus. And I just don't realise. So, my aunt or my list.
You know you get a free iPhone nowadays for every birthday.
The submarine chief back on the Far East.
Guys, you still blessed with such vigor.
Now take it back to Russia. Get it back to Russia.
Alec is now in there with the
Hercules
planes that have of respect. The band that you saw
Kilt told you we rule the world.
This is the representation from Australia and the Congress very shortly. And Emmanuel Macron will also be.
Israeli military says it hit a Hamas compound inside Gaza school.
American service at 12:30 Omaha Beach. Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine.
Oh, there we go. Done.
Sunak, President Biden, President Macron afternoon. And then later on, I think, notably.
And it's disgusting. Is it just me? Is that no an insult to all those old boys and all that here? Come on, get all the old boys out in droves. Make an extra special one it this year because we obviously need them to sell us. Well, this is what you need to do. When your freedom doesn't come for free, you know, you need to fight. Well, it's not really freedom, it's just like fucking big bunch of tyrant fucks. It need foot soldiers. It's a bit like Shredder. That doesn't quite work, but anyway.
There will be a meeting of heads of state of Mr. Sunak, President Biden, President Macron, Chancellor Olaf Scholz from Germany, and also Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine. A meeting of leaders who will reflect, I think, on the lessons of war in the past.
Yep. Let's do it again. I'm spinning around, move out of my way. Oh, what?
And the challenges of the future.
I don't know why that song popped into my head there. I think it's spinning around.
This is on this celebration, this commemoration, this reflection.
Yes, of how many millions died. Let's do it again. What's that song? There's a fucking song. I'm trying to come out.
This is the
subconscious just
vehicles just arriving, and these are the flags just raised for the British.
Now these white fuckers, and do you know all these white fucks and boats? When they invaded France, they were all young and of military age, and there was no women or children.
Wait the arrival of the king.
There was not enough Nazis to stop them.
A line of diplomatic vehicles that are beginning to back up at this point, and that is the Prime Minister. Rishi
That was
Sunak,
Kylie Minogue, Barry. She's got a special
here
place in my heart.
At this Normandy Memorial, he will be giving an address. Of course, this is an apolitical moment. All political representatives here talking about the need. It's not to be about party politics, of course, but about a reflection on the lessons learned from.
No, it's about a sailor war. Not about party political broad. We put all our differences in the country to the side and focus all on using millions of people dead. And, you know, the first war of the war to end all wars, but then it was so good we went, it was the Great War, so we'll do it again. And then the second one, you know, it's a bit like Rocky, you know, you just can't keep that cunt down, man. You can't keep it retired. When big boys swinging their dicks, I want those fucking African fucking resources, man. They're like, right, time for another one. Fucking Rocky free, motherfuckers.
Much about the remembrance of those who gave their lives. Their names are written.
Steve the Piano, I'm of the big opinion it's been happening for a long time. I would say Syria. But you could even argue like the United States stroke the West NATO allies kicked it off with Iraq and all that. Because that definitely wasn't what it was sold to us on the tin, but it wasn't also just let's spin the bottle and go and invade a fucking random country. There was thinking behind it, and like this. Remember when you were a truther or a conspirator, you would know about the project of a new American century and all the neocons and all that shit. That shtick seems to be going pretty well. There's different players and we're all thinking about Antifa, fucking the stupid other masks, Anonymous, fucking communists, Trumpetists. Does that work? Trumpetists.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam. Alistair is here with us as well. Poignant.
Aye, World War III's on like Donkey Kong, man. You could maybe say they started the BRICS.
80 years ago.
Was the start of World War III? It was the economic start of it. Was it Forbes or not? It was The Economist, and I cannot find this cover for the life of me. But it was common cannon fodder in conspirator land about 10-15 years ago, and it was the front page talking about China projected to be the biggest economy by 2050. Now they've reduced it down to 2045. And if you don't think the other economies are going to stop China doing that, or at least try, and then I think we're all, I think you're naive, because it's happening.
Assembled are all the different nations, and the fact that the President of France is coming also points out quite how grateful
The Allied
France
troops
was, although,
invaded
many of the people
the
who lived in this
Nazi
particular
German
area of the coast
Tommy
were so
Robinson land.
horrifically bombarded and endured such a tremendously difficult time. It really was an
Where's
outstanding
Zelensky
achievement by all
recruiting for
those
Ukraine?
who
Can we
landed
spot him?
and
That'd be well
started
funny.
and created the bridgehead from which the ultimate defeat.
Oh, there's
of
a big
Germany began.
microphone. Look, I bet you he can hear in the wind.
Events like this.
People thought that was all just for show and all that. Nah, that's so that guy can hear what's coming even when it's windy.
Smooth and
Fact.
effortless.
People don't know what.
Well,
People,
they
not
do
a lot of people know that.
consistently follow the traditions of previous occasions, and you know, we have
Drop the
witnessed,
mic.
particularly
You
when
talking
the
about? No, I mean that's when he's heat, so he's got wind protection,
gather
so he
all
can hear
those
the
who are
assassins
able,
creeping up just
here
before a
every
little bit
year.
before anybody else.
And the template
All
for
right,
that.
Pete.
But I think that now that this particular memorial at Vert-sur-Mer has been completed and formed such a focus for those
World
who remain,
leaders
and will
gather
be,
for,
I hope,
apart from putting
a
together
beacon of
to beat the war
reminding future
drums against
generations
Russia.
who, if
Here
they
we
are
go.
brought here by their families or their schools, get a chance to learn a great deal about this campaign, about the price of battle, the cost
They
of
don't-
freedom, and all of
don't
that.
they
And
have
also get a
leprechauns
chance to see
until
what
they
people
hats?
who are not much older than them faced so soon after their own school time
Oh.
in being thrown onto these beaches to defend the land that we like to
Oh,
think will
GG,
always
that, I'm
remain
pretty sure we've all came across those maps, and they apply to pretty much every area of the globe, whether it be Russia or China, for example. Well, I was going to say, and Asia, but that's aimed at kind of China, isn't it?
Marking the first time the British Normandy Memorial
Right, I've
has
got
been at the heart
Spaceballs
of
here, right,
major
so-
anniversary commemorations.
chance for all those
I
who
want
are
to
lucky
get straight to
with
the war
a
drums.
plethora of cadets who, particularly if they are the American.
Where's the war
to
drums?
fully
Is this going to be a full day show, do you think?
respect them
Well, it is live.
throughout his life. And pretty much the same time was a
Where's
burden
Putin?
given that.
Right.
But when you go
Be taken
Right,
for
let's go.
granted.
Oh, hold
That
on
is why
a
we-
second. Here's me shoe shack. That's Polish for wee man's penis.
see much more clearly
Fact.
in the dark, wet sand the name of each of the American soldiers.
Don't
who
ask me
lost
how
their
I
lives.
know that.
Let's hear from Rishi Sunak.
Shoe shack.
Because only by remembering can we make certain that the cause you fought
Only by remembering can we think how heroic it is to go and run towards machine gun nests. Let's not forget the retardedness of trench warfare of World War II, when we sent many knowingly to their deaths. But maybe a ball hair better than World War I, when we did literally tell people to run towards fixed machine guns. Knowingly that we would to gain at best maybe 5 to 10 meters. Let's never forget, but let's remember Saving Private Ryan, because we all know that's the best documentary about how good World War II was. And never forget Call of Duty World of Warfare, I think it was called. That was immense. And remember all the multiplayers you had with your friends and the fun and joy of killing Nazi Germany's. But now we're going to kill the Russians. Okay, get it, got it good? I am Rishi Sunak. We will always remember those games of Call of Duty, those Saving Private Ryans. I'm trying to think of other sexy World War II films. The Great Escape. I love motorbikes and fucking that Steve McQueen cunt. Am I right, Steve McQueen? Get your camos on now. Sign up. Military service. ID cards. Australia telling you can get citizenship if you join their army. And let's not forget, let's all remember the flag that Australia flies. Let's never forget trench warfare and your fucking trench foot, because they couldn't even give you a proper pair of fucking Adidas. or Timbies. Let's never forget those fucking multiplayers. What was it? Modern Warfare. Yes, come on, Shushack, let's sex it up, my man. That's how I would sell it to the roof.
That great cause of freedom, peace, and democracy will.
Freedom to what, you fucking Shushack? The things I want to call you that would probably get arrested if I called you. Freedom, motherfucker!
Never be taken for granted.
Never be taken for granted because Putin's coming to take it.
That is why we honour
Oh
our
fuck.
veterans.
Myself a cup of tea for a punch the screen.
And that is why I ask those who can to now rise. And that is why. And please join me.
Look at the noise I can make. I can make the best aeroplane noises ever.
Please join me in giving our heroes the welcome
Hey,
they so deserve.
I'm that cunt out of fucking... I'm that cunt out of a police academy. Did you hear that? Was that no some sound effect I just made? Whoa. Yeah. I want you all rise and fight Russia with me together. They've had harp on. Put the harp on for the good weather, of course. Woo! War with Russia! War with Russia!
We've just momentarily lost our communication with the Prime Minister. Alistair is...
It's a Russian hack. It's a Russian
Alistair,
hack,
waiting to
tells you.
hear or to see the King and Queen arrive.
Well, that, of course, is the focus of the event. The King stayed in France last night. First time he's been
Adolf
staying abroad since
Helsinger, the
his
NATO
cancer
chief of
diagnosis,
staff.
and a chance for him again to represent the nation at something that really matters. And he will be the focus, as I was saying.
Nice Hugo Boss suit.
You know, he carries on that baton that was held high by his grandfather, King George VI, throughout the war. And I think
Doberman,
for the
catch you next
generation
time, my
who
man.
fought
Enjoy your
for
walk
King
or
George
whatever.
VI, to have his grandson, their king, with them today at Vers-sur-Mer will be really the apogee of what it's all about. And they've made this journey. It is a pilgrimage
Doberman,
for them.
the
They've come
Nazis
over,
cozied
as we
up a
saw,
good
Rhiannon
bit.
was with them on board the ferry as they came in.
They cozied up a
Countless
good bit with the
different
Catholic
volunteer
Church,
organisations help
and in
these
those
amazing veterans,
prisoner
not
of
least
war
their own
camps,
families who come
workers'
in large
camps,
number.
whatever you want to
And
call them.
it is excellent to see that
There
sort
was
of
they were locking and
community
rounding
that
up Masons
gathers
as well.
always on these
Maybe not all the
amazingly
Masons,
sun-soaked beaches.
but a good lot of them.
Canadian?
Yes,
Captain Prey has climbed down the line.
at Juno Beach, where the Canadians, who were immensely successful on the first day, landing and taking an enormous amount of land. Which
Let's
was
not
a
forget
huge achievement,
who's the
and they
head
were
of state of Canada.
landing in between the two British beaches of Gold and Sword. But it's great to see the way each of the nations mark these moments. And the Prince of Wales has attended the Canadian celebration today. He'll be with the Canadians, marking their very special memory.
What role...
Fuck's sake, Sky News, get your shit
Wales
together.
play, in these D-Day commemorations, more generally?
Well, he will be at the Canadian celebrations or commemorations now, and then later on he will represent the King when all the heads of state gather at the American beach later on. It's been decided that for the King there will just be too many people there and it would be unwise for him. But, you know, coordinating what's going on in the sky with what was happening on the beaches themselves and the landing craft, it's just so difficult to comprehend quite how rough it was on the 6th of June 1944. And for those landing craft, the dropping of the front gate and the running ashore, generally into quite deep water. And then for the landing craft who'd had a terrible time being bombarded and shot at relentlessly from the defensive positions that the Nazis had along the Atlantic Wall, then had to go out, get another lot of troops and bring them in, and relentlessly doing it again and again. And for me, it's always those who were commanding and crewing the landing craft who I often think about, because it must have been so difficult to go away from it and then turn around knowing what hell was and return to it again and again.
And those, when the tail dropped on the landing craft, having to run through the water, as you said, and a vast expanse of beach before they could get to any sort of cover or safety.
Well, it was a billiard board, and if you're a soldier, you want to get behind something to fight, not just be exposed in the way that they were. They were just so exposed, particularly at the lowest tides and the tidal arrangements. It had all been decided that they would land on a moonless morning, which would give more chance to get ashore. But also, it was a moonless morning when the tide was quite far out. So that exposed all the various beach defences, which would make it easier to come in. But it meant for the soldiers themselves, they had to run, as you say, over this
machine guns
area, which in itself, until they'd established themselves. You see, once you've established yourself and you've placed...
once you get enough dead bodies in front of you, then you can kind of huckle behind the corpses.
You, literally, as you get out.
Maybe make it onto the beach.
It was just carnage on those beaches.
I know it's out like... You're selling it to me, man. Like, so I'm fucking going to find Putler.
Thousands were lost. But Churchill thought many, many more would. It turns out that, you know, it was an audacious... And look, here we are, coming in with the White Ensign at the back, one of the many vehicles that brought ashore tanks and equipment designed to float, and, you know, they had their motors, and then they had wheels too, so we might see it come out.
Designed to float? Fuck for that? Is it part of your fucking beach invasion?
Being bombarded, they're not
Great one, Einstein.
Terribly
fucking
easy to engage with
fucking hero.
From gunnery, locked into the Atlantic wall or dug in. And so it was a very exposed challenge. But let's see, they're coming past some of those floating docks.
What the saying is,
were absolutely vital.
They did send people off to the
family
but
been
that's
in the
war.
south coast. We have these posts which mark where the fuel was brought down from the Midlands to go on pipeline under the ocean, Pluto. And that pipeline was pulled across with the invading forces in order to provide fuel, so that as soon as they had landed, they had the fuel to carry on. I wanted to see that vehicle go up the beach.
Yeah, I did see it just go up the beach.
Just started.
That was it, yeah.
War porn.
British
when there's porn,
ceremony
there's
here.
war
Actually,
porn.
It's in Normandy. We're watching it live here.
That's what it is, isn't it?
As you are in the UK.
Who does he love a good bit of war porn?
Coverage
I bet Ryan shit. Hey, is that Spaceballs? No, can I fast forward it? Right, do you know what? Let's see, it's Al Jazeera, because they weren't fighting in fucking Doha. In Doha. They weren't fighting in World War II, weren't they? Right, we got half an hour ago. They'll be straight to the dead bodies and babies. And remember, there's the poll. What is worse, hitting somebody with a milkshake or sharing on your social media that has millions and billions of followers a picture, a video of a dead grandma bleeding out in the street before the police probably had a chance to inform her nearest and dearest. You decide. Both retarded. What one's most retarded?
Over 100 people are killed in
All opinions welcome.
State. Witnesses say the paramilitary rapid support forces attacked the village. Also ahead.
Fucking zoned out there.
Natasha vulnerable central Gaza.
I mean, I need to know this at least. I need to know the scores on the doors, you know. Oh, but I don't need to see the fucking bodies on the floors. Floors on the doors, not bodies on the floors. There we go.
And a residential area in central Gaza.
Right, no doubt this will be fucking body central. Got the censorship at the ready.
I'm Marlene Saeed. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up. Already vulnerable, the deaf community loses its
Stephen Piano, I agree, mate, but I would say there's two fronts. Ukraine's definitely a front.
In Sudan's Al Jazeera state, witnesses
Taiwan
say
and the
paramilitary
South China Sea
forces
second to
attacked
be the
village.
third front.
Also ahead.
My prediction.
I'm Natasha Butler in Normandy, where 80th D-Day commemorations are underway.
Well, you can't even fucking go to the desert to escape the D-Day shit. The D-Day stuff.
We begin in central Gaza, where
This is me
Israeli
not
forces
drunk.
have bombed a residential
Sober.
building
This is the
and
soberest
a
time
UN
ever.
school that was
In the
sheltering
morning.
forcibly displaced Palestinians in the Nuseirat refugee camp.
Well, Barry, what are you saying that you're not going to be saying?
Imogen Kimber has the story.
Ukraine Near East Front. Nice, Stephen.
Of an Israeli strike on a UN-run school.
Definitely, but I dare say that's a front. Another front, kinda, I would say, but you could tag this onto Gaza as Syria. And Syria was a well, aye, because the Gaza front and the Syrian front are different players.
I woke up to the screams
I
of
would
women
argue.
and saw torn body parts. One woman lost 2 or 3 children.
Africa
People have lost everyone.
is a front in the sense of all the proxies.
Where people are being treated
But hold on. And where is it in Africa that there's Russian and American troops in the same base? Is it Nigeria or Niger? Or Niger, I like to call it, just because I'm a child. But Niger, there's American and Russian troops at the same air base. Niger are fucking playing them off against each other.
Israeli military operation
Good on them.
Gaza that has killed more than 70 people since Tuesday. Attacks on civilian infrastructure, like this school, have been hallmarks of Israel's war on Gaza. Over 300 education
I've
centres have been
zoned out for the
destroyed,
doom
and more than
and destruction.
36,000 people have been killed, 15,000 of them children, with the death toll still rising.
36, that's up a 3,000 since the last time I gave her shit to count. You know, so after such a number, you're just like, right, enough's it. Throw an R10 in the fire, what's the difference now, you know?
Including many of the more than 1 million who fled the southern city of Rafah, where Israel started its ground offensive last month. Let's go to Tarek Abu Zoum. He joins us now
the
live
granny
from outside
video.
Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah. So Tarek, another night, another attack on a refugee camp.
Barry,
Can you tell us
well,
a bit more about what happened?
I'm quite liberal with the comments I do allowed to go up and shit. It's in the realms of my kind of crackpot humour. Blackwater, we're helping the Wagner group trying to overthrow the Mozambique government. GG, I'm going to hum in half for a wee second. Note that I'm googling this, there's no way that I'm googling this. Can work, copy and paste, god damn you. I'm not googling it, no. No, I know Mozambique exists. I know it's African. I just don't know what neck of the wood, because Africa's a big. Why can't you get maps anymore? Fuck you, Google. Fucking funneling us down into your little fucking shitholes. Oh, right down next to Madagascar. Madagascar. You would think I was honestly half drunk this morning. I was in my bed for like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
But the grim reality is that there's no any end in fighting till now where the Israeli army...
What does Madagascar, what does Mozambique have, GG? What minerals are they holding? Hold on, right? I'm acting like I haven't got a Google. Mozambique. Here we go.
It has been bombarded, so well, we have to go. We have fled Rafah, moving to the central area. It's going to be more expanding the entire...
Ask the brain, ask the brain. So, they've coal, graphite, that's what the modern, that's what you need for fucking electrical modern gizmos. Titanium, I know that's one of them. Marble. I would be bombing the fuck out of those motherfuckers to get some marble, man. I love marble. I don't know what that shit is. Gold, that's always a good thing, innit? And Tandlilla. Oh, aye. No doubt, fucking cunts get a dog in the fight to go and kill those motherfuckers and steal their shit. Where the world? Just every cunt's a modern day Viking. Shit. Let's get back to the news. 32 dead. Oh, they're just dipping. 32 dead. Here's the bodies. Literally, there's the fucking bodies. Fuck's sake. Yep, and we know you're banned. Where's the drone?
The Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting in Israel, which
Yeah.
is why
Oh, really?
Imran now joins us
Never heard that
from
one
the
before, yeah.
Jordanian capital Amman. Imran,
New
so
one.
the Israeli
Definitely
army
a new one to
has
me.
been discussing that attack on the camp in Nuseirat. What did they have to say about it?
Well, the Israeli army is quite literally sticking to its guns. It says that the Israeli military used fighter jets to strike the school run by the United States.
Tommy Robinson, Barry, that's who uploaded it. Well, sorry. He didn't upload it. but
they don't offer any evidence. They say the school was used
for my sins, I'm subscribed to him on my Twitters. So when you hit your home button on your Twitter, you kind of sometimes, get the feed for the people you're subscribed to. And I done that one morning, and Tommy Robinson's, I'm pretty sure he shared it or he posted it directly, but it wasn't his clip, if you get me. He wasn't there filming it. It wasn't presented that way. I can't remember whether he just reshared it on his page, but it had hundreds of thousands and thumbs up and all that as well, and then it was obviously dressed up. It was obviously like, oh, here's fucking Abdul that's fucking killed another fucking white person, And it was literally the granny bleeding out in the street, man, and it wasn't even like warning. Fucking don't watch this if you don't like grannies, seeing grannies bleeding out their neck on the fucking street. And I was subjected to it, man, for fucking raging, man.
But the key thing here is we've seen the Israelis do this before. They say, oh, there were terrorists there using their...
So that's who it was, Baza.
There were Islamic Jihad people there. And then that turns out not to be the case. And then the Israeli army say, we are aware of this incident and we're investigating it, clearly hoping that something else will happen and the focus will simply shift and the war will simply continue as it's going.
Why does Cecil Rhodes, the name Cecil Rhodes, ring such a big bell, and yet I'm going blank on who the hell he is? He one of the first guys that raped and pillaged that place at the world.
Now, as diplomatic efforts continue to end the war in Gaza, Hamas says it's sticking...
But it's alright, man, I can't type on a good day. I made a video today and I realised that I hadn't even typed Tommy Robinson's name in properly. I mistype things on thumbnails and I put it up and I see it and I go, fuck it. If I was OCD about typing, I wouldn't have fucking spelt my name once.
And 9 injured in a drone attack from Lebanon on Wednesday. Hezbollah says
here's
it
something
launched
new.
the attack on Hofish, 3 kilometers from the Lebanese border.
Why aren't these people celebrating D-Day? Look at the fucking fruits of D-Day, everybody. That area of the world's still a shithole and in perpetual war ever since World War II. Fucking beautiful, man. War, what is it good for? Mere war. War. Yeah. What is it good for? Selling lots of arms and lots of money. Sing it again.
Recent days. I mean, it's been simmering. The situation there's been simmering throughout the last 7 months. But would it be fair to say that we are now seeing
in the
an
morning.
uptick in the violence there?
Well, maybe it's more likely now than before, considering that all the efforts that the international community has been doing, the increasing pressure coming from Latin America, from Africa, from European countries, from the ICC, asking Israel to do something different from what they have been doing in the last 7 months, did not produce any change. I mean, we keep seeing that Israel keeps
The truth lies in the middle. Right, let's play devil's advocate or just try and be objective in yourself. If we wasn't going to go and fucking bomb a school just on the fucking whim of it,
and neither Israel seems to be interested.
I didn't even a fucking IDF soldier going, yo, Abraham, yeah, Abraham too, yeah, Abraham free. Hold on, I just need to comb my Jew. Can you comb Jew froze? I don't know. Abraham, what shall we do today, Abraham? I don't know. Let's blow up a school. Yeah, good idea, Abraham.
It's very likely that
So,
this,
I don't know about you. If I was going guerrilla style, with IDF pounding me and I had a slingshot and whatnot, it's a bit slight exaggeration to fight back. You'd be doing everything in your power to keep your head down and all that, which would be I believe that Hamas and all that are fucking using and abusing and hiding within the civilians. But then, what if the civilians are Hamas? Because if the IDF kills your mother, your father, your sister, yada 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 yada, boom, does that automatically make you Hamas? Because now you're in the fight because you want to kill the bastards that have just annihilated your whole fucking family? Do you know what I mean? Like again, some objective fucking reality thinking about this shit instead of listening to Abdul or fucking Abraham. Do you know what I mean? Fucking Abdul, fuck Abraham. Need some cunt with a big massive fucking big claymore. Chop them both in fucking half and go, shut the fuck right. Refugees, sit the fuck down before you all get chopped in the fucking half. Act like fucking adults, you fucking unthinking fucks. That's what I would do.
We're not moving towards a permanent ceasefire.
We're moving towards a permanent ceasefire, aye.
Very clearly said that
in the meantime, thousands will die.
At President Biden, he really stuck his neck out, didn't he, when he made that big speech.
I don't think Biden can move that far. That would require some balance and some movement. I don't know if Biden can stick his neck out at all.
When we reach 30 and we so far.
Right, they're going to go on constantly about.
Okay, this is.
Thank you. Rehabilitation center available. Now, Israeli soldiers have destroyed the only rehabilitation center available to deaf Palestinians during their assault on northern Gaza.
Just when I thought they were going to bring in the funny dog pictures. Nah, any funny dogs.
They intentionally dismantled the academy.
Any funny dog pictures in the rubble. It's slightly amusing. I've got a bad sense of humour, I don't know.
Once a place resident Palestinians are displaced.
God's sake, man, that's like one step off a glass eye and a wooden leg, innit? It's rounded up all the deaf folk, man, like here. In the filmies. Where's this? Where's Morrison?
Still waiting for the final number of forces.
Missed it.
100 people were killed in 2 attacks by the paramilitary rapid support forces in a village in Jazeera state. The group says it's still waiting for the final number of dead and injured, including information on their identities. The Sudanese Resistance Committee has called the attack on Tuesday a massacre.
Right, so it only takes one thing like that. Who done it, who knows, and boom, 20 million Arabs on each side want to kill each other. Perpetual warfare, while Mr. Colonial Whitey, or just half white colonial, raping and pillaging that fucking place. Do you know what I mean? How easy do you think it is to wind up an uneducated Abdul to grab a machine gun and go and start firing on people? Here, by the way, he said that your ma stinks. Yeah. Oh, this gun! Oh, you like this gun? Here, point it, click, boom, boom, boom. That guy says your ma stunk. Next thing you know, that Abdul's killing fucking that Abdul, and you have Abdul on Abdul violence. Boom shakalaka, you have a whole civil war. While you sit in your ivory tower protected by the fucking best of armaments. And rape and pillage the country. But that's just a small theory.
So it means that even people will start dying and are dying now of different for different conditions. So even women that needs to be delivering, it will be more and more this area.
Right, so Sudan was on Wesley Clark's list.
Just with all the is not in a
who's that? The red? No, that's somebody sitting in Paris.
Indonesia's Mount Ibu erupts
Ooh,
again,
cool.
forcing thousands of people to flee their homes.
Not so cool.
Despite the fact you see swirling clouds, which...
Right, so we know what the They have went all balls out. Sky News done that as well.
It's actually
probably.
free software, and they can go online and create actual branching stories, so choose your own adventure kind of story.
See, did they actually
games,
give us
it's
some news?
So easy to do. So there is technology like that that could actually encourage children to write that maybe don't want to sit down with a pen and paper.
The tips I would give is to just go for it, because like even if you're not writing on a piece of paper,
there was all the D-Day stuff there, still D-Day.
These different apps.
So they're doing their hours at
to
their
not
news
just
at a
not
different
write
time.
like as in handwriting, but you could still like write stories.
That we commemorate and pay tribute to all of those who made that sacrifice. But of course, it was just one of the battles. This is a global war
D-Day shit.
Involving, and one of the
Some stories for us.
of the UK emplacements, and
You must have like a time ratio, you know, for every 8 minutes, for every 6 minutes we speak about D-Day, we need 4 minutes speaking about war with Russia and Ukraine.
And war stock and remember for the war against Dale.
If they're going to have any other news on it,
really knowing what was going to happen.
Queen, Alistair.
Yes, the King and Queen arriving at Vers-sur-Mer and received there by
the King,
British
Queen?
Ambassador
Oh,
to France.
look up man, pure military garb and all that. That is a fucking joke, isn't it?
The King dressed as a field marshal.
Remember, that's the King's army, and all the King's horses and all the King's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But listen, it's all ceremonial, folks.
80th anniversary really get underway, and you'll see that is the mayor.
Really get
Mayors
underway.
always wear a sash with the blue closest to their neck. All the other senior parts of the councils, as they are in France, have the red closest, but the mayor has blue. The King is meeting the Chief of the Defence Staff, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, who we spoke to on Sky News only yesterday. It's a huge event for the King to have the chance to represent the nation, and with him different members of the household who are organising to make sure that the King and the Queen are taken to the right location.
Have you noticed how quickly they've morphed Camilla into Queen? Nobody's even battering an eyelid anymore.
An important part of the focus, not only of the survivors of the Normandy landings, but
James
also
Corbett, man, I've not heard of him in a long time, buddy.
Cost of that
wow, that is a blast from the past. That is for sure, man.
And the King and Queen will be passing them as they head on into the event itself. But for the King, the chance now, having come to France to stay the night last night, and then to lead the nation's representation here. The Field Marshal's baton that the King is carrying was given to him by the late Queen, and of course after Montgomery had led the armed forces so brilliantly in their landing, he was made a Field Marshal by King George VI in September 1944. But it's out into the waters that our eyes return.
Eyes returning. What?
We will, of course, continue our coverage throughout the day here on Sky News for the British D-Day ceremony, which is already underway in Normandy. Several other events planned for later on in the day, Alistair.
Yes, at the same time, we have the Prince of Wales with the Canadians at Juno Beach, and then eyes will turn later on in the day to Aroas up in the north or in the Midlands of the United Kingdom.
There's the kids with books or something, man. That's...
will be attended by American.
I wanted to see the King's baton, right enough.
Former Rachel standing by for us. Hi, Rachel. So what's the plan today?
Well, today it's going to be more difficult questions, I think, for Alice Perkins, who was the chairwoman of the post.
Oh, God almighty.
Postmasters to
The gallows are going to... We're going to have to laser these people's heads off by the time anything actually happens about it.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it. I can't recall.
Israel's military says it targeted what it called a Hamas compound inside a school for the...
Just had that
in the early hours in central Gaza, the Nusrat.
Where's the guy that can't breathe through his nose?
Where many displaced people have been
the Corbett report, is that still going, Barry? Still,
in the early hours. Now, according
I was
to
wondering
the
myself.
Gaza-run health ministry,
I used to be out of Japan, buddy.
7 people have been killed. But according
Like
to
Ryan
the
Dawson.
figure now has risen.
But remember, Japan's an American military industry. Japan's a floating aircraft carrier to take out China when the time comes.
Fairly serious injuries as well. Now, the Israeli military say that they did everything that they could to try and limit civilian casualties, but they claim that this
unofficial
school was
YouTube
being used
site
by
uploading stuff. Is it recent, Barry? Is it current topics?
Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who were directly involved in the...
I'll be honest, he was always a bit dorky for me, but that's kind of, he was appealing as well. But then after a while it was just uber dorky. I don't even know, that word shouldn't be in my vocabulary.
Situation worsening. But on that front, the indications are not looking
sake, tell me something new. Do you no notice it's just the same tripe to appease everybody or make you just forget about it? D-Day. Oh, here we go, kids.
Why are children not writing for fun anymore?
Because they've got text messages.
I want to answer. I think there's...
No, it's why it's difficult. I didn't fucking off the top of my head in 2 fucking seconds. Oh, tune to their moon on their digital device. Well, it's really hard. I can't think. Maybe it's the air. Maybe it's the water. Who knows? Fuck sake, Einstein there in the right. Fuck knows who that is. But she ain't even smart. If you can't answer that straight off the bat, she's obviously there to punt you something. An app. Oh, check this teeth in this dude.
Indeed, a forecast to go up a lot in the next Parliament. And therefore, it's not quite, you know, the one-sided story that the Conservatives might have you believe. Actually, they've been raising taxes as well. So that's the thing. But they don't... Well, the awkward thing is, first of all...
Yep, that's exactly how I feel hearing everybody trying to make the general election sound interesting. Yeah, I call it the general election because no matter what happens, a cock is going to get elected, and it may affect my algos. I really don't care, man. Those days are gone.
Someone believes that it's possible to supply such weapons to a war zone in order to strike our territory. The response could be asymmetric.
Vladimir Putin warns that Moscow is considering sending weapons to regions from which countries that approve strikes on Russia can be hit. Putin also slammed the false narratives politicians use to escalate the war.
Fighting should have led with us.
Wants to attack NATO. Are you completely crazy? Dance like this table? Who came up with this? It's nonsense, you know. That's rubbish.
No, it's no Putler.
The Prime Minister makes his first public address after a failed assassination attempt.
Alex Jones? No, no anymore. Who's the main guy in town now? Paul Rogan? Who's the biggest crackpot in town now?
It is a cruel observation, but the right to
It'll be an Alex Jones gremlin, no doubt.
In the EU.
And Israel confirmed striking a in central Gaza, killing at least 30 people and wounding dozens
fucking
more.
break, man. That's right, folks. I believe in censorship.
RT International.
Derek Rees.
Vladimir Putin says Moscow will consider sending weapons to regions that will strike Kiev's arms dealers if Russian territory comes under fire. In a conversation with foreign media representatives, the president added that the West's involvement in the strikes against the Russian Federation would mean its direct involvement, and Moscow reserves the right to retaliate.
Мы думаем на тему о том,
We are thinking that if someone believes it is possible to supply such weapons to a war zone in order to strike our territory and create problems for us, then why do we not have the right to supply our weapons of the same class to those regions of the world where there will be strikes on the sensitive facilities of those countries that are doing this against Russia? So the response could be asymmetric. We will think about this. And of course, such actions will finally destroy international relations and undermine international security. Ultimately, if we see those countries being drawn into a war against us,
I'm not
and this is
Googling
their
this.
direct participation in a war against Russia, then we reserve the right to act in the same way. All in all, this is a path to very serious problems.
Well, a marathon 3-hour interview on the sidelines of the
Asymmetric, having parts that fail to correspond to one another in shape, size, or arrangement. Having parts and aspects that are not equal or equivalent. Right, having parts that are not equal or equivalent, does that mean that he's saying they might retaliate harder than they get hit? I always thought, do you know what I assumed it was? Maybe this is what it is, right? I always thought it would be like they'll hit them from the air, they'll hit them from the sea, they'll hit them, you know, military speaking. Like, instead of, I don't know. I'm confused.
Petersburg Economic Forum, in which a variety of topics were raised. But of course, the conversation was dominated by the war in Ukraine. Not just its causes, namely the Western-backed coup in 2014, not just the narratives being spun about...
She does look sexy, doesn't she? But she does look like she's been sucking a garden hose a wee bit too much,
one reality which Vladimir Putin is, as we just had, very clear-eyed about, is that
is that a good thing?
Long-range missiles will almost inevitably be used by Kiev to strike Russian territory. Now, we know that this is...
I think they can hit Moscow. The missiles that they're going to give them, man, I think they can fucking rattle the old Moscow.
In America. But it now seems fairly obvious that despite initial reservations about their weaponry being used...
She's definitely a sexy Russian spy, isn't she? She could get a job in fucking James Bond.
The green light, untying Kiev's hands in this regard.
She was formed in a KGB fucking test tube laboratory.
As for the fear-mongering which Western capitals are engaging in, here's President Putin's reaction to that.
There is no need to invent anything and use these ideas to form an opinion about Russia. Forming an enemy image out of Russia is not necessary. You're only harming yourself by doing so. You made up that Russia wants to attack NATO. Are you completely crazy? Dance like this stable? Who came up with this? It's nonsense, you know. That's rubbish. It would be nonsense if there was no plan to fool their own population. Oh, help! Russia will attack us soon. We must urgently arm ourselves, urgently send weapons to Ukraine. But in fact, why is it being done? To maintain their own imperial position of greatness.
The question of the Ukrainian leader's legitimacy.
I'm not a Putler supporter, I just agree with what you're saying.
Remember that Zelensky cancelled the presidential elections, which should have taken place this year, citing wartime martial law. But his critics say that since his term officially ended in late May, he is now unconstitutionally running the country. But what's interesting is that despite this, despite the death toll of Ukraine's armed forces rising daily, despite the situation for Kiev on the front worsening daily, and despite Zelensky's popularity plummeting in recent times from 90% to around 65%, the White House continues to back Zelensky to the hilt. Why? Here's Vladimir Putin's take on that.
If we're talking about irretrievable losses in particular, then the ratio is the same, 1 to about 5. That's the basis on which we're operating. This, by the way, is the reason for the attempt to carry out total mobilization in Ukraine, because there are very large losses on the battlefield. We know from the Ukrainian side, and this is an open secret, that the US administration is insisting that the threshold be gradually lowered from 25 to 23, then to 20 years, and then to 18, or immediately to 18. Because now they already require registration of 17-year-old boys. We know this for sure. This is a demand from the US administration to the Ukrainian leadership, which can hardly be considered the leadership after elections were cancelled. In any case, I think that the US administration will force the current leadership of Ukraine to make this
believe
to
that
lower the mobilization age to 18
Western
years,
powers are quite
and then
happy
they
to
will
use
simply get rid of
Ukraine as a
Zelensky.
proxy standing
Now
army
it's June
against
2024. It seems to me that it will take
Ukraine,
a year
against
to do all
Russia.
this. Until the beginning
Then
of next year, at least they will tolerate
maybe
him.
my
And when he
theory
does everything,
about
they will say goodbye and change him.
Zionism
There are
kind
several
of been
candidates,
created
as far as I understand.
to create
And
a
this really all
Jewish
feeds into the
standing
wider
army to keep the
issue
Muzzies
of
out of
not just Zelensky, but
Jerusalem,
Ukraine
or
as
to
a
take
whole
Jerusalem
being
back
little
first
more
and
than a
foremost,
pawn
and then
for the
kick them out
West,
altogether,
civically
and then
abused
keep
by
them out.
Washington, especially in the name of great
Rather
power
them
politics.
die doing what we want, if you want to say that, is the West,
After all, no one
than
in the
us.
US is interested in Ukraine. They are interested in the greatness of the
I
United
mean, in those,
States,
if you
which
get
is
away
fighting
from
not
the
for Ukraine and not for the Ukrainian people,
elders
but
of
for its
Zion and all
greatness
that kind
and
of
for
stuff,
its leadership in the world.
that kind of
And in
makes
no
more
case do they
sense. I
want
think
to
that's
allow
what
any
Sherlock.
kind of
I think
success
that's the
for
conclusion
Russia,
Sherlock.
precisely because they believe that in this case the leadership of the US would be damaged. That's the gist of what America is doing.
So those were some of the key takeaways from that pretty comprehensive interview, and definitely an overriding sense that President Putin is under no illusion as to whom Russia is really fighting and how far the West is willing to go to cling on to the global dominance that it has enjoyed uninterrupted for centuries.
Among the other topics
Illuminati.
which we discussed with the foreign media were the relations between China and Russia, the ongoing war in Gaza, and American affairs. We will be airing the full conversation throughout the day right here on RT International. Take a look at some of the highlights.
The United States is burning itself from the inside, its state, its political system, and I must say, it is also burning its supposed leadership in the sphere of democracy, right at the root. It is obvious all over the world that the prosecution of Trump on charges that have developed based on events that took place years ago and without direct evidence is simply the use of the judicial system in a domestic political struggle. In a direct way, it's obvious to us in Russia. I'm sure everyone around the world thinks so as well, and most importantly, in the United States itself. After the famous court decision, Mr. Trump's ratings went up, I think by 6% immediately. This shows that people in the US do not trust the judicial system that makes such decisions. Ironically, both in domestic policy, international policy, and economic policy, I think the current US administration is making one mistake after another. It's sometimes surprising when you look at what's going on. So we are looking at it from the outside. We have never interfered in the internal political processes in the United States, and we are not going to interfere. But we will see where this leads.
The West just can't do the same.
The first thing I want to say is that, of course, we are
Hitler
against
right
terrorism
now,
in
it
all
just
its
can't get any
manifestations,
traction with
against
anything
attacks
like
on
this.
civilians, anywhere, in any country. But what is happening now in Gaza, in response to the well-known terrorist act in Israel, does not really look like a war. This is some kind of...
But I'll tell you when I noticed the tide turning. See when they tried the trick in Syria of, he's a... remember before Putin was the new Putler? It was Assad. And then they tried to say Assad gassed his own people. And then that's when the info war really went into gear. And because at that point there was such a propagation of internet and internet media, social media, and people getting their information that way, no longer did the Western propaganda, the intelligence agencies of the West, propaganda tentacles had the same traction they used to have, and they lost that argument in the public opinion, the hearts and minds of the public opinion, as to whether Assad had gassed his own people or not, and thus didn't get the traction they needed to go in there and nuke the place.
Total annihilation of the civilian population. I can only repeat Russia's official position on this matter. We believe that this is the result of the policy of the United States, which monopolized the Israeli-Palestinian settlement and pushed aside all previously created tools for collective attempts to resolve this most difficult issue. Political issues need to be resolved, and which one is the main one? This is the creation of two states, as was originally envisaged in the UN decision, to create two states on this territory, a Palestinian state and a Jewish state. Therefore, without addressing the key issues, I think it is hardly possible to resolve the issue on its merits. As for China, under the skillful, very professional leadership of President Xi Jinping, it is developing and developing at the pace necessary for China. As for other industries and directions, I have been talking about this all the time. And here I can only repeat that our interaction in the international arena is a deterrent and an element of stability. But you know, apart from the economy and mutual security issues, and you know, we are conducting exercises and will do so in the future, including military exercises, we are working in the field of military technical cooperation. We have something to offer our Chinese friends there, and our Chinese friends are interested in working together in this area.
Slovakia's prime minister has made his first public address since he was shot 5 times at point-blank range.
She was good looking, mate. No doubt she would have got
last month.
hot on within
Robert
that
Fico claimed the reason
bunker
he
of
was
geeks.
targeted is because no one's allowed to have different views in Europe anymore.
This situation in the relations between my political representation and partners in the EU and NATO escalated after the Russian attack on Ukraine, when we refused to provide Ukraine with any military aid from state stocks except for humanitarian aid, and where we continue to fundamentally prefer peace to war. It is precisely the conflict in Ukraine that the EU and NATO has elevated even more, literally sanctified the concept of the single correct opinion, namely that the war in Ukraine must continue at any cost in order to weaken the Russian Federation. Anyone who does not identify with this single mandatory opinion is immediately labelled as a Russian agent and politically marginalised internationally. It is a cruel observation, but the right to a different opinion has ceased to exist in the EU.
Well, first of all, Robert Fico, I got to say that for a man who was nearly killed less than a month ago, he looks absolutely fantastic and very healthy, and looks like he's got a commanding
like he's going to hand
as well, body language,
the West
and
with a
as well
stick
as
somewhat.
speech. So thankfully, the perpetrator
get
in
well
that
soon,
case was
big
not
man.
successful. Just a reminder, on the 15th of May,
See what team he's on?
71-year-old Yuri Chintula, a Slovak, a local, shot Robert Fico several times in his torso, and the man was on the verge of death, basically. He was rushed to the hospital. We all saw that footage of helicopters, of cars rushing out.
Oh, come on, make it look cooler.
It was done in plain daylight. Now, he's been recuperating ever since in the hospital. And today, once again, we saw that he's ready to fight back.
Plain flower.
He's ready to work once again. And at the beginning, initially, we all thought, everybody in the world thought that he wouldn't make it, but thanks to the doctors and his own inner strength, probably, he's successful now. He's back in politics.
I think it's pretty miraculous that he survived a shooting at such close quarters.
This is
Obviously,
them
we know who
fucking
the
go,
assailant
he's
was.
tried,
This
but
is
you
Yuri
missed.
Sinter, who you mentioned there, who has admitted he
Thinking
was
he a
attempting
rapper-
to
a
kill
rapper song.
Robert Fico.
You hit me once, but you missed
who
me.
else does Fico believe is
I think it was
perhaps
a Tupac tune or
behind
something.
his assassination generally?
Robert Fico, he's at the moment, he's probably one of the very few politicians in Europe who are still strong in their opinion. He's not afraid to defend his country's interests.
He's
and
one
not
of the
fall
few
in line with
European
whatever,
politicians
puppet
with most
masters
gold
are saying elsewhere,
down his
whether
throat.
in Europe or across the
RTO
pond.
Painting was just a free thinker.
He's
Telling it as it
blaming-
is.
In this particular case, he talks about
He's
Soros
picked the
several
side.
times, but he talks about Western
And the other side are trying to kill him.
NGOs and, of course, the mainstream media. That's one of the main.
Here, pal,
people
you
to
used to be
blame
on
in
council
this
TV,
case.
so
And, of
shut
course,
the fuck
all
up with that
these,
mainstream media
they're
shite,
all
and you would still
kind
be
of
there if you didn't
downplayed
kick
this
ass.
assassination
Fucking
attempt.
insincere, fucking weird ass sounding Russian.
It is to be expected that the
Ah,
anti-government media,
chaka,
foreign-funded
chaka.
political non-governmental organisations and the opposition will begin to downplay my assassination attempt, that it was only an attack by a deranged person, that there were no connections between him and the opposition, that the harm to my health was not serious. I want to ask the anti-governmental media, especially those co-owned by the financial structure of George Soros, not to go down this path and to respect not only the gravity of the reasons of the attempted murder, but also the
Alex
consequences
Jones is
of this
retired.
attempt.
He's now
And
got a
again, I challenge
Mission
them to
Impossible
conduct the
mask, and
already
he's
known
that
test
guy.
by Robert Fico. How would they behave if something similar happened to one of the leaders of the Slovak opposition and the attacker was a person with connections to smear?
Well, he's certainly right about one thing there, and is that if it happened to
Soros.
somebody else who wasn't so pro their own country instead of somebody else, of course this would have been televised a lot more than the attention that it got in this case when Robert Fico was almost assassinated.
We want to see
Yeah,
death.
it's really interesting because this is a man who has not towed the line when it comes to what Brussels want, perhaps what the US wants as well. He was elected back in September of last year, and he came into power on a platform that was, I'm pro-Slovak. I'm not a Russian stooge, which is what he's been accused of. What I want is the war to stop, and I don't want my nation to take part in it. Does he talk about this?
Well, of course, this is not just our words, and it's not just our speculation in this case. This is what Bratislav's special criminal court said, and at the hearing of this the assailant Cintula's case, they said that one of the reasons behind this attack, and it's the court saying that, it's not the journalist, it's not somebody else speculating, it was the reason behind the attack was Bratislav's decision not to send weapons to Ukraine or help Ukraine in this ongoing conflict with Russia. And the court also said that the suspect showed general resentment towards Russia, towards the government that didn't want to help Ukraine. Well, we have to also remember that perhaps this
one spark to set it all off,
Cintula, who's now being tried
and then
for this assassination,
someone
well,
it's interesting to go, I was speaking to somebody the other night and they said, with today's eyes, it's interesting to go back and watch the first ever Mad Max. That's what I'm blaming my haircut on, by the way, the new Mad Max. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There, but he decided to kill somebody else.
But what I'm saying is, so like, it's interesting to go back and look at World War
without
I and
any
what's
reason
happened
being
there.
given for my political
Like, different
activities.
eyes
For 3 years, we
and
have been drawing the EU's
put your
attention
tinfoil
to
hat
the
on and
situation in Slovakia, yet not a single word of criticism was uttered regarding the quality of the rule of law in Slovakia and the antics of the government in abusing the penal code to eliminate the opposition. No one, neither in the EU nor from the representatives of the individual large Western democracies, even asked about the deaths of the lawyer Krivichenko or General Lukansky, and about the demonstrably manipulated criminal proceedings. For large democracies, it was much more important than the rule of law to have political forces available in Slovakia that were and are ready to do anything for the benefit of foreign interests, even if it is in direct contradiction to Slovakia's national interest.
Well, it seems to be common sense. A leader of a country is protecting his country's national interest ahead of anybody else.
30 people were killed and dozens more wounded in an IDF strike on a school in the central Gazan refugee camp of Nuseirat.
I'm going to see dead bodies here.
And it's times.
30. It was 30. We know the scores on the doors. In fact, that's quite a good function because very.
Killed and more than 100 more injured after two trams collided in the central Russian city of Kemerovo. That's according to local authorities.
Was he not shot with a BB gun? He looks really
one of
well
the
to say
trams
that he was
making a
shot
high-speed turn before the crash. Its doors coming off with several people ending up on the street. One passenger died while 108 people were admitted to the hospital, including 7 teenagers. Most of them have already been discharged, while 20 remain hospitalized. According to media reports, either a technical problem or human error could be to blame, but the official cause is still being investigated.
Is that the link for joining the channel? What link?
China has called for more constructive global voices
on my name
to end
somewhere,
the Ukraine conflict, as
clips
Beijing has announced it won't be attending the
channel.
upcoming Swiss peace summit because Russia won't be represented. It's offering its own solution to de-escalate.
The world needs more balanced, positive and constructive voices on the Ukraine crisis. To that end, China and Brazil jointly issued a 6-point consensus on the political settlement of the Ukraine crisis, stressing the need to abide by the 3 principles of de-escalation of the situation. These include no spillover from the battlefield, no escalation of the conflict, no provocation by relevant parties.
Why can I hear English guy and then this Russian guy, this guy translating the English into English with a Russian accent. Can you hear that? That's worth a fucking listen again.
On the
That's the strangest thing ever. Oh.
It's offering its own solution
Listen
to
to the, you
de-escalate.
can, in the background.
The world needs more balanced, positive and constructive voices on the Ukraine crisis. To that end, China and Brazil jointly issued a 6-point consensus on the political settlement of the Ukraine crisis, stressing the need to abide by the 3 principles of de-escalation of the situation. These include no spillover from the battlefield, no escalation of the conflict, no provocation by relevant parties.
The call from Beijing comes ahead of the so-called peace summit that will take place in Switzerland. The Swiss government has invited more than 160 countries, but China is refusing to attend, saying the summit won't be able to facilitate peace as Russia is not on the list. NATO's Secretary General has called Beijing's decision, quote, regrettable. We spoke with the vice chairman at the Shanghai Center for International Studies, Nelson Wong. He says he doubts the Swiss conference will bring any peace without Russia's inclusion.
Maybe this Saturday.
The time is now for the West to
consider
a settlement.
Pop in and check out.
With Russia not being represented at this summit, this is not a possible
depending what's happening on Saturday, I might do one on Saturday.
To talk about peace, actually. It's quite doubtful how the result of such a meeting is going to yield out.
More than a few years ahead.
China has made itself very clear to the rest of the world and to all the parties concerned that a peace talk needs to have all the parties concerned to be sitting at the same table. It's actually high time that the politicians of some of the Western countries, or particularly countries of NATO, that are supplying weapons to Ukraine at the moment, to think and to reflect on what their end game is, because we are actually on the blinks of having a major, bigger conflict of a much bigger scale, because Russia has already set its lines very clear and what they are going to do, or what they are prepared to do if the Russian territories gets attacked. The war is going to spread to other parts of Europe if this doesn't come to a stop.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden recently greenlit Kiev's use of American-supplied weapons to strike targets in Russia. While Vladimir Zelensky thanked the White House for this permission, he criticized Washington for not going far enough. The U.S. has only approved targets near the Kharkov region. Senior fellow at the Taihe Institute, Einar Tangen, says Kiev's appetite only grows as its allies tire of the demands.
Zelensky is pushing an unrealistic agenda. Yeah, you know, he's losing on the battlefield and he wants an unconditional retreat by Russia. Even his allies are now getting tired of his kind of whining approach, his entitlement mentality. But this tops the cake. He's asking people to take time out for a farcical matter. There's nothing that's going to be happening there. He demanded that Russia agree to an immediate withdrawal of all areas, cessation, be prepared to be treated as war criminals. It's absolute nonsense. He didn't want Russia there. He just wants some sort of pressure he can apply to the West to get him more arms, ammunition in a failing war. So Washington is happy to watch Ukraine burn, or as they say, Washington is willing to fight to the last Ukrainian if it suits U.S. interests.
China has drawn a red line for the U.S., urging Washington against sending any form of wrong signals to separatist forces in Taiwan. The warning came from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to one and the same China, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of the China's territory. This is the real status quo in the Taiwan Strait. How to resolve the Taiwan question is a matter for the Chinese people. We urge the U.S. to fully recognize the inherent nature and dangerous ambition of Taiwan independent separatists, stop arming Taiwan, and stop sending any wrong signal to Taiwan independent separatist forces in any form.
And the statement followed Joe Biden saying he will not rule out U.S. military involvement in Taiwan if the situation escalates.
It would depend on the circumstances. I've made clear to Xi Jinping that we are not seeking independence for Taiwan, nor will we in fact not defend Taiwan if China unilaterally tries to change the status. And so we're continuing to supply capacity, not ruling out using U.S. military force.
Relations between Beijing and Washington have long been strained over Washington's presence in the Asia-Pacific region. Apart from Taiwan, the U.S. Army ramped up its military drills with the Philippines last week. China sees this as an effort to destabilize the region. On Tuesday, a member of the country's top brass lashed out at Washington's double-standard approach during a news conference at Asia's premier defense summit, the Shangri-La
One person
Dialogue.
killed by shooter in West Moscow.
The US uses the rules and orders as hegemonic narratives. When these rules and orders serve its interests, the US employs them. When they do not, the US discards them. The US uses the rules to suppress others, but never to restrain itself. It has always acted egotistically, doing whatever it wants, from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Ukraine to Gaza. All these crises and conflicts are results of the self-serving double standards of the US.
We spoke to Asia political risk analyst Ross Feingold. He says it's unclear whether the U.S. would actually take the island's side in case of an escalation.
The United States policy for many, many years has been what we call strategic ambiguity, which is it doesn't say yes or no with regard to whether or not the U.S. would intervene to protect Taiwan. Frankly, though, the assumption that most people make is that the U.S. would intervene to defend Taiwan. So over the last many decades, the United States has really been the one country that is willing to sell weapons to Taiwan. It's been many years since European countries, for example, have sold Taiwan weapons. Some did in the past. They faced a significant backlash from China, and they've not been willing to deal with that possibility again. So the European countries stopped selling weapons to Taiwan. It's primarily only the United States that does so, and the policy of the United States was that Taiwan should have qualitative as well as a quantitative military advantage versus China. Unfortunately for Taiwan, we certainly know that China now has a quantitative advantage, and arguably it might have a qualitative advantage. I think going forward in the near term, if Taiwan is a willing buyer, generally speaking, the U.S. is going to be a willing seller of weapons.
All right, to breaking news this hour. One person has reportedly been killed in a shooting in West Moscow after an unknown gunman opened fire at pedestrians. Witnesses say the killer shot one of the victims 4 times, once at point-blank range.
I say walking into,
are
but
on the scene and are searching for the
trigger's
shooter
been
who
pulled,
escaped into a residential
game
area.
of chickens on and nobody's
reportedly saying the
blinking.
attack was a murder for hire.
Get out my pool round eye.
Russia was not invited to the commemoration ceremony.
Not since I've been an 11-year-old boy has anybody been able to call me round eye.
In defeating Nazi Germany during World War II. Meanwhile, Vladimir Zelensky is among the top.
I do have a
with
Japs
the
eye,
West turning a blind
but
eye
never
to the
called-
Ukrainian
I've never
Nazi
been called
battalions
round eye.
sowing violence in the Donbass. RT correspondent Steve Sweeney breaks it all down.
As leaders gather on the Normandy beaches, Russia's absence will raise a few eyebrows, given the huge sacrifices made by the nation during the Second World War. But according to Russia, an invite had been expected in recognition of the efforts of the Soviet army, something which apparently angered the White House.
We would defer to the government of France, which organizes the commemoration at Normandy. But perhaps this will remind the Russians that they actually fought real Nazis once, not imaginary ones in Ukraine.
Well, to be fair, they didn't invade the beaches.
Saying it's not the first time that the Second World War had been used as manipulation and political game-playing by the West. And it scoffed at the suggestion that neo-Nazis in Ukraine were imaginary, given the evidence is in plain sight for all to see. Just weeks ago, the red carpet was rolled out by former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson as he lavished praise on the far-right Azov battalion in the Houses of Parliament.
My message to you is very simple. Thank you to the heroes from the Azov Brigade who warned us about their presence tonight. We rely wholly on heroes such as the people who are here tonight with us from the Azov Brigade.
It wasn't the first time the British establishment has been courted by neo-Nazis. King Charles III, when he was Prince Charles, received an honorary law degree from the University of Alberta in Canada, bestowed on him by then-Chancellor and former Waffen-SS member Peter Savarin. But if the neo-Nazis in Ukraine really are fake, then why did Germany, which knows a thing or two about the subject, send a group of soldiers back there for displaying Nazi symbols?
Within the framework of training conducted by the Bundeswehr for Ukrainian armed forces, 7 cases were identified where soldiers wore right-wing extremist symbols. The training of the affected Ukrainian soldiers was immediately terminated in consultation with the Ukrainian armed forces, and the individuals were returned to Ukraine.
So Germany seemed to be well aware that they may have been training Ukrainian neo-Nazis, going so far as to tell them to hide Nazi symbols. A case of out of sight, out of mind, perhaps. Other more ideologically open Ukrainian neo-Nazis are even complaining that they aren't being given Western weapons. Azov commander Denis Prokopyenko has called for the organization to be removed from US legislation, which bans it from receiving Western weaponry.
I emphasize that the very existence of such amendments and prohibitions not only prevents Azov from performing its combat missions more effectively, but is a blow to the defense capability of our country, tarnishes Ukraine's image on the international level, and is humiliating for the entire Ukrainian army.
The ban has been in place since a 2017 amendment stated none of the funds made available by this act may be used to provide arms, training, or other assistance to the Azov battalion.
White supremacy and neo-Nazism are unacceptable and have no place in our world. I am very pleased that the recently passed omnibus prevents the U.S. from providing arms and training assistance to the neo-Nazi Azov battalion fighting in Ukraine. The State Department should pressure Kiev to dissociate itself with this group and investigate whether any of our weapons or training have already been provided to them. This is just one of many reasons why lawmakers should be concerned about channeling huge amounts of weapons into this volatile conflict zone.
But despite the ban, US-made grenade launchers seem to have made their way into the hands of the neo-Nazis.
What's wrong with that?
According to now deleted posts on the militia's website.
They got them off the Bloods or the Crips.
Ukrainian National Guard issued a statement in 2018 denying the weapons were in Azov's possession.
The Azov Special Unit does not have American ATGMs in service. Some media outlets have reported that the Azov Unit of the National Guard of Ukraine is armed with American Javelin ATGMs and PSRL grenade launchers. We would like to inform you that the Azov Special Forces Unit, which is part of Military Unit 3057, does not have the above-mentioned weapons.
Well, maybe they aren't now, but they certainly had them in July 2017. The CEO of Texas-based company Airtronic told Voice of America that it was continuing deliveries of lethal weapons to Ukraine in very close cooperation with the US State Department, the Pentagon, and the Ukrainian government. But the amendment explicitly recognized Azov as openly neo-Nazi and fascist. So it seems those neo-Nazis are not imaginary after all. Not according to the United States, nor its leading ally, Germany, who sent them back to Ukraine. Perhaps the 80th anniversary of D-Day should in fact stand as a reminder that Russia fought the Nazis then and is doing the same against their ideological successors today.
All right, recapping that breaking news we're following here on RT. One person has reportedly been killed in a shooting in West Moscow after an unknown gunman opened fire at pedestrians. We have this video just into us here. Witnesses say the killer shot the victim 4 times, once at point-blank range. Police are on the scene and have opened a citywide manhunt.
Who knows what happened, but I bet you Ukraine will be fucking weaved into it somehow.
Reportedly calling the shooting a contract murder.
Oh, maybe not.
All right, do stay with us here on RT International. Up next to more of President Putin's conversation with foreign media representatives on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Bye-bye.
So was he deliberately doing that at a time? Oh, that's where that American spook guy got arrested, kicked off the plane and his passport took off.
I'll be very short. Tomorrow we are going to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day, of the... I'll be very short. Tomorrow we are going to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day, of the U.S. French soldiers. They fought together with Russian soldiers, with Soviet soldiers. Can you rule out that right now Russians, French, and the U.S. can work together and be partners?
No, we cannot rule that out. It's the U.S. and Europeans who are ruling that out. We're all for it. We did not introduce any sanctions against Europe. We did not discontinue providing energy to Europe, to Germany. We are being sanctioned here. You said that tomorrow they're going to celebrate 80-year anniversary of the D-Day, of the disarmament in Normandy. We have always held our allies in the greatest esteem, both the Americans, the British, the French. Incidentally, do they know in France that it was Stalin who insisted on France's presence, and not just presence, but also on France's signing the Capitulation Act with Germany? Both the US and the UK were against that. It was Stalin who insisted on France's being there as a victory country when the pact on unconditional surrender was signed with Germany. The French do not remember. Maybe they do not want that, or maybe they do not think much of it. But it's a historical fact, something we've preserved in our archives. We've always had great respect for France that was fighting and resisting despite German troops marching for Paris. We supported the Marquis and also the Normandy Neiman pilots and opened our doors. Our doors are always open to talks, to negotiations and discussions. You've just mentioned that, but it's as if we are not welcome at that holiday, as it were. How many Americans died in the Second World War? 500,000? And even fewer British citizens died. The number is lower than that of those who died during the First World War. The biggest sacrifice on the altar of this victory was made by the Soviet Union. According to the latest calculation, around 27 million people. Out of them, around 70% from the Russian Socialist Federation of the Soviet Republic. Russia accounts for 70% of those losses. They're asking whether we are willing or not willing, but no one has invited us? The biggest contribution to defeating Nazism, and it's evident. You have to simply read Churchill. You know, the biggest contribution comes from the Soviet Union. The biggest contribution to the shared victory over Nazism. And everyone knows that only the most dishonest people are trying to distort these historical facts. Okay, let them be. Let them celebrate without us. You know, it's not going to do us much damage. But they're saying that the current leadership of Ukraine is going to be there right now. But just listen, how can you celebrate such an important anniversary in the fight against Nazism together with those who are putting the neo-Nazis on a pedestal, making national heroes out of them? The current symbol of Ukrainian statehood is Bandera, who was one of the major henchmen of Hitler in the territory of Eastern Europe. And it was through the hands of Banderites that thousands of Russians and Poles and Jews were shot dead. He was the closest accomplice of Hitler. Yet at the end of the war, he sniffed on the wind that victory was escaping from the clutch of Hitler, and he started to search for new allies in the West. And the Germans took note of that. But he was the main collaborationist. And he threw a hand salute welcoming the Nazis, and he was directly collaborating with them. Back then, he was still legitimate, and the head of Ukraine applauded standing a former Nazi at the Canadian Parliament. Do you know about that? Of course, everyone knows about that. But the media of the West, Europe, the US, and Canada were trying to keep it all hush. Even though it was a person who fought against the Allies during the Second World War, and everyone stood up and applauded the person who, as they said, had fought against Russia. And who did fight against Russia during the Second World War? It was Hitler and his allies. So the man who got that standing ovation was a former SS soldier. And tomorrow, the very same people are going to celebrate the D-Day. What are we to make of that? Especially given the fact that Russia is the successor state of the USSR that suffered such heavy losses.
This is a PR
Well, they're ashamed to invite that. Okay, we'll survive that. But you know, that answers your question about who is interested in rebuilding relation and who is not. We are all in favor.
I'll let Dear speak.
My question also regards Ukraine. Still, you cannot tell us the number, the loss of Russian military servicemen in the Ukrainian during the conflict.
If it's the only thing that is of interest to you, I say that usually no one
really
talks about it. And if they talk about it, then generally they distort the real figures.
$1 between allies.
Now, I can tell you with full confidence that our losses, especially if it regards, well, unfortunately, irreparable losses, they're many times smaller than the Ukrainian side. And I can tell you the number of people and the prisoners of war, our soldiers and officers that have been held captive, 1,348 people. I know these figures because we're working with them every day. And quite recently, there was an exchange of 75 people on each side. The Ukrainian soldiers that we're holding, 6,465. If we talk about irreparable losses, I mean the dead, and I think it's the same ratio, 1 to 5. So that's our logic here. That is why they're trying to conduct a total draft in Ukraine, because the losses on the battlefield are tremendous. You know, we think that our calculations are that the Ukrainian army is losing about 50,000 people per month. These are all casualties, though I think there are 50 to 50 ratio of irreversible, irreparable losses and injuries. The total draft that is being held right now does not solve this issue, nevertheless. According to our data from different sources, about 30,000 per month are being drafted, conscripted. Whether it's false draft or not, well, there are not that many volunteers right now. So I think last month they drafted about 50 to 55,000, but it does not solve the issue. Why? Because this draft just covers the losses. It's all just to repair the losses. It's a major issue. That leads to the lowering of the draft age. Now they've lowered it from 27 to 25 years, and we simply know it. Well, it's an open secret. There are basically no secrets there in Ukraine. The administration of the U.S. is insisting on a stage-by-stage lowering of the conscription age from 23 to 20 to 18 or to 18 years straight away. Because right now, they're asking 17-year-olds, 17-year-old males to be put on the military register. And we know it for sure. That's the demand by the U.S. administration. It's a demand to the Ukrainian leadership. If we can think that there's still leadership after the elections were canceled. I've recently spoken publicly about that. I think when I met the press when I left Uzbekistan after a visit there, and I think that the U.S. administration will indeed make the current Ukrainian leadership make this decision to lower the drafting age to 18 years. And they later would get rid of Zelensky. First, it needs to be done, because this is a very difficult matter. A law must be adopted. Certain steps must be taken. Now we're in June 2024. And to do that, all of it, I think it would take a year. So till spring, the beginning of the next year, he will be tolerated when Zelensky does it all. They will wave him goodbye and will change. I think there are several candidates now, but it has to do with tremendous losses. 50,000 is the most modest calculation. 50,000 is what we see on the battlefield. And if you take into account that there are certain losses that, well, we know that they're there, but we cannot confirm them because they're happening at the home front, there's still tremendous losses.
We used to have a journalist, Arman Surdin, on the 9th of May 2003, died in Ukraine. We think that he died after the drone strike, as we think. France is conducting an investigation. And they're saying that the drone that killed him came from Russia. Well, that's not my question, but the Ministry of Justice of France would like to conduct an investigation. Is Russia prepared to cooperate with France? So you would know what truly happened. It was a major tragedy for us, for our agency, because, he was survived by a family. He was 32. Roman Selin was 32 years old. So we like to have some closure, some kind of serious investigative work done to know what happened. Would Russia take part in that?
It's always interesting.
You know, we've never refused to take part in investigations. Do you know how many journalists died in the war zone? Do you remember, Dmitry? At least 30 journalists died. Our journalists died there, and no one has given an opportunity to investigate what happened to them. That's number one. Number two, if we talk about what's happening in Ukraine, they're in jail, in prison in the Kiev regime. An American journalist was tortured to death. But unlike you, the United States are not even asking what happened to him. He was an American citizen, a journalist. He was captured at the border, dragged into jail, and he died there. He was tortured to death. That's what happened. It's not a figure of speech, but no one asked what truly happened to him. Despite that, we're prepared to organize this investigation. I don't quite know how to put it into practice, because if a person died in a war zone, then, well, still, we can do everything in our power for that.
Today, the relations between Azerbaijan and Russia are developing in an upward trend, and recent visit of President Aliyev to Moscow gave a chance not only to celebrate a memorable anniversary, 50 years of the bomb railroad, but also to discuss bilateral relations. What's your take on the future outlook for bilateral cooperation, and in particular, the development of the transportation corridor north-south?
Our relations are developing successfully, reliably, and in a pragmatic fashion. We feel the stance of Azerbaijan, which is building our interstate relations based on mutual interests. And also there's an element of mutual sympathy, because otherwise it wouldn't be possible to explain the presence of 300 schools in Russian language in Azerbaijan. Children are being taught in Russian, and I know that President Aliyev is fully supporting the study of the Russian language in Azerbaijan. And we can see that in all aspects, in all spheres, which tell us that the leadership of Azerbaijan believes that the Russian language is going to be something that Azeri citizens are going to need. And they will need that language for further developing our bilateral ties, which are developing our trade stance at 4.6 billion US dollars. And the
Let's see if Biden drops down deed.
Sabga Brady, who played Corporal Frank Mellet in
his eyes are not open again.
Nolan Hemmings, who played Sergeant Chuck Grant. And gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, no way, man.
You are taking part in some of your fellow cast members in the US commemorations today.
Things or something.
That's correct. Talk us through what has been planned for your involvement, and I think you're there on the ground at the US commemoration. The mood for you today?
Well, it's staggering and it's an emotional place to be in. First and foremost, it's a very somber place usually, but now it's a day of celebration.
Live pictures of Biden, you're thinking, this is getting recorded, this could go down in history as the last live pictures
just to be here is
Biden
is an honor.
You can see around us all the graves, all the men here. And
where am I?
Is
it look? Oh, cut!
But we're here to honour the guys.
Look, man, that old thing there, that old dude.
Throughout the war.
Look,
and we actually.
I wasn't sure if it was a guy or a woman. Seriously, that old dude looks more lively than Biden, doesn't he?
C-47 that flew over Normandy on D-Day and also Market Garden and beyond, and served through the whole of the Second World War. And that C-47 is called Placid Lassie, and it's a beautiful old Skytrain 100-year-old plane. So we jumped out of that on Tuesday, and we're jumping out again on Saturday, down into the fields of Normandy.
Well, gentlemen, stick with us for a moment. I just want to bring Alistair Bruce, our royal commentator, back in. Alistair, as we look at these live pictures of the King and Queen metering veterans.
Nope. Let's go back to
this development is very good, very steady, and we are increasingly diversifying our relations. I am confident that we should manage to preserve these good intentions on both sides. And in Russia, we share those intentions. Then the outcomes are going to be great. Of course, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And you are absolutely correct in saying that we need to further develop the logistics, not just the north-south corridor, but also there are other dimensions on that, such as setting up logistics hubs at the Azeri-Russian border, at the Dagestani stretch, where the works are currently underway. It also applies to other directions. We have quite a big number of students studying at Russian universities, receiving scholarships from the budget, and we see there is a very big interest in receiving further education. As far as that north-south corridor is concerned, it can turn into an international route which is in high demand, Because right from here, cargo shipments from the port of St. Petersburg can flow through the European part of Russia, then on to Azerbaijan, and then onwards to the coast of the Gulf, maybe 10 days or so faster than if they were to go through the Suez Canal. I'm not saying anything bad about the Suez Canal. It's very good for the world trade, but this new trade
fuck it in the ass gently, we're taking it, baby!
From the north to the south and vice versa.
It's called, was it the New Silk Roads? One belt, one road initiative?
This is a very good route, but there still is a lot that needs to be done. We are working on both sides.
Who dominates the Suez Canal?
The president supports this project.
China
We've
either
spoken with him about that on many occasions.
It's
the leadership
Egypt either
of Iran
side.
is also in support of this project and says this
and
project
Israel just
promises
north
to be
of the
very
Sinai.
beneficial. There are other
Who built
foreign
it? I think it was
investors
the
that have
Brits.
expressed their interest in that
Wouldn't
route,
that
and
neck
not
of the
even
wood
regional
have been
investors,
built?
but investors from, say, other sovereign wealth funds of the Arab countries, because they're always searching for a possibility to invest money in reliable endeavors. There are still issues that need to be studied further, in particular, what stretches and where and how.
Are you
they're
talking
going to be
about
funded.
Biden had
Is it
that,
going to be
or that
based on a
old
loan,
the
or
other
is there
dude
going to
that
be
looked
direct
well more
funding from
lively
Russia?
than
How is this going to fit in with the streams that are going to head
Biden?
westwards?
Oh, no doubt,
Across the
buddy.
territory of Azerbaijan.
Everybody knows the older generation is typically a lot harder than the young.
Whether it's going to be a narrow
Never
gauge or a
more
wide
so
gauge
than
road.
the cunts that were
I mean,
flung into
the
a
one that's
war,
going
man.
to be built on the territory of
No
Iran.
doubt.
But the crux of the matter is everyone is determined to implement this project we've set up. The Directorate, VTB, is the organization responsible for that. I am confident that we will complete this project. Well, it's going to take some time. There are some issues about funding, but this is not the only project we are pursuing together. Apart from that, Azerbaijan is a Caspian state. It's one of the 5 Caspian states, and that means that we've got many joint interests. Some apply to the environment of the Caspian Sea.
Mr. President, recently you have conducted a state visit to China. You have quite close relations with China. This can be cited as a model for building relations between major powers.
Swedish.
What's your take on the current state of cooperation between Russia and China?
Well, as far as our bilateral relations go, I would like to tell you that they are not short-term relations. They are based upon fundamental principles. For 15 years, China has been our major trade partner. So we started to build our relations and we propelled it to the current level, not pursuing some short-term fleeting goals that come and go day in and day out. We decided to pursue this relationship based on mutual interests in a calm, gradual fashion. And I can tell you that we are making huge headway. Currently, our bilateral trade has exceeded our expectations. It's $240 billion US, according to the Chinese statistics. We assess that number at $230 billion, according to our statisticians as well. But it's not just about our trade. Our trade is about being diversified and quite successfully to boot. And it's not just about hydrocarbons or hydropower.
But this is
there are also supplies of oil and coal and energy. We're also building nuclear power plants in the People's Republic of China and doing that quite successfully. All of that is happening, but we're also cooperating in high tech. We've got very good prospects. I refer in particular to aviation, to AI. You know, we're happy here. We celebrate China's successes in different domains, in particular its space exploration. There are some unique achievements we're talking about, and the Communist Party of China is the leading political force in China. Everything that's done over there is done under the guidance of the Communist Party of China. That's something I would like to draw your attention to. I said that. I don't know whether I said that in this format and whether that's going to be interesting to you, but there are some experts in Russia, very good economists, quite young people, albeit already very experienced. They say that the analysis of what's happening in China's economy and the analysis of what's happening in other economies across the world, including the leading economies such as the U.S., show that China has succeeded in building an efficient, albeit peculiar, economic model that might even be more efficient than the one that the U.S. has. And judging by the results, the economy of China is demonstrating this is something we can agree on. Yes, there might be some discussion of some Western partners of ours that say China's economy is not entirely based on the market. There are regulations by the party. but the outcome is out there for everyone to see. And it shows that this model is more efficient. And the Chinese leadership needs to think about every citizen, each and every citizen,
communism?
and not all of them live on the same level as an average European or American citizen. So it's up to the leadership of China to take the decisions that will allow them to see to the needs, the vital needs of Chinese citizens. And all of that is done thanks to a good friend of mine and the leader of China, President Xi Jinping. They are achieving great successes, doing that reliably and steadily, and we can only be happy for them. We're aware of everything that's happening in the world's leading economies, including China's economy. China's economy is generally very reliable, and it's becoming increasingly based on high technology. And I think it's a huge mistake on the part of the U.S. and a number of European countries that are trying to somehow stymie or bring down the pace of the Chinese economy. Because I think in order for them to be successful, they would need to fit those processes, to integrate them, rather than trying to obstruct them. Some very smart people say that China is overproducing cars and also overproducing electric cars. Who is saying such things? It's those who believe themselves to be proponents of the market. Don't they know who decides whether there is an overproduction or not? It's up to the market to decide. If China produces a certain number of cars and all of that is consumed and absorbed by the market, what kind of an overproduction are we talking about? It's just nonsense. Is it possible to call that an overproduction? No, that's not called that. It's called an attempt at stymieing the growth through non-market means, and that is harmful, in particular to the U.S. economy. And why is that? You're not taking goods from China?
Flooding
These
the
goods
market.
are those goods? Will it result in themselves producing something? No. It will produce them in having to buy from elsewhere, and this is going to be more expensive. This will result in a higher inflation rate, and the higher inflation rate is going to have a nefarious impact upon the economic structure of the country that is doing such things. And it's going to be harmful, in this particular case, to the economy of the U.S. It's an error, a mistake, yet another one, yet another mistake of the current administration of the U.S. As for China, yes, they have very professional guidance by President Xi, and they are moving ahead at a very good pace. And there are other fields. I've always spoken about them, and I can tell you that our cooperation in the international arena is a motivating factor and also a source of stability. You know, we conducted exercises, and we are going to continue conducting exercises, including military exercises with them. We're also engaged in military and technical cooperation, and we've got a lot to offer our Chinese friends. And there's an interest on China's side in this kind of cooperation.
For World War
Our cooperation
III
is not confined either to economic or to military technical cooperation or to international cooperation. This year, we have proclaimed across years of culture, and our moderator, said that, Russian songs.
The Chinese might even let me get that
this is just as important as the rest I've just spoken about. Because that lays the foundations of relationships between the
fucking
peoples.
Chinese fucking pens never work. The conspiracy, they're going to stop. There's a fucking kill switch
and this is
pens.
Something we'll strive to stick with henceforth. And I am hopeful that we will be able to meet with President Xi and speak about all these issues. And I hope we'll be able to meet within the framework of the SCO and the BRICS organization.
Told you BRICS could possibly be argued to be the start of World War III. Shit, I just wrote BRICS there. Did you forget that? I don't know. You're meant to be writing something. You're meant to be writing one thing and then you start saying something and you write it.
Isn't it?
It's just man nut.
A shattered reality distorted by power.
I don't know about you, I found that fucking fascinating, man. Tell you what, it was more interesting than the debates between the fucking puppet punching Judy last night and the other night, and the Scottish leaders' debates, which both of them very irrelevant because none of them are getting voted for apart from in their own constituencies. So they were only speaking to like 6 areas of the world. Hold on, well, Scotland had what, 3? I can't even fucking remember. It was 3 talking heads. So 5 enclaves of Britain were getting spoke to, the rest of them like, fuck you. Right, now, these bad boys are going to be over this. Oh, fucking, there's macaroon bar. French aren't even over that. No.
Putin warns that Moscow is considering sending weapons to regions from which countries that approve strikes on Russia can be hit.
The blocks for World War III are all clear to see. The blocks for World War III are clear to see.
Are you completely crazy? Dance like this stable.
Loco! Are you crazy? Are you loco? Jump around. Get up, get up, get up. It's a Cypress old track in there, isn't it?
That's rubbish.
The Slovak Prime Minister makes his first public address after a failed assassination attempt, suggesting his views made him a target.
Anyone who does not identify with this single mandatory opinion is immediately labelled as a Russian agent and politically marginalised internationally.
He obviously
it
works
is a cruel
for,
observation, but the right to a different opinion has ceased to exist in the EU.
And Israel confirms striking a UN school in central Gaza, killing at least 30 people and wounding dozens more.
No.
You're watching RT International live in Moscow. I'm Rachel Rubel. Vladimir Putin says Moscow will consider sending weapons to regions that will strike Kiev's arms dealers if Russian territory comes under fire. In a conversation with foreign media representatives, the president added that the West's involvement in strikes against the Russian Federation would mean its direct involvement, and Moscow reserves the right to retaliate.
We are thinking that if someone believes it is possible to supply such weapons to a war zone in order to strike our territory and create problems for us, then why do we not have the right to supply our weapons of the same class to those regions of the world where there will be strikes on the sensitive facilities of those countries that are doing this against Russia?
Man. Make sure
So the
the grease
response
those
could be
fuckers up.
asymmetric. We will think about this. And of course, such actions will finally destroy international relations and undermine international security. Ultimately, if we see those countries being drawn into a war against us, and this is their direct participation in a war against Russia, then we reserve the right to act in the same way. All in all, this is a path to very serious problems.
Well, a marathon 3-hour interview on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg Economic Forum in which a variety of topics were raised. But of course, the conversation was dominated by the war in Ukraine. Not just its causes, namely the Western-backed coup in 2014, not just the narratives being spun about an expansionist Moscow, but also about the realities on the ground today. Now, one reality which Vladimir Putin is, as we just heard, very clear-eyed about is that Western-supplied long-range missiles will almost inevitably be used by Kiev to strike Russian territory. Now, we know that this is something that has been endlessly debated in recent weeks.
An eye in the stick using their proxy Ukraine. Ooh, here we go.
In Lebanon, after months of exchanging fire over the border, there are fears the conflict could spiral into an all-out war. World leaders are gathering to mark the 80th anniversary.
Skipped off the line.
Genocide case against Israel at the International
Court
of
that was
Justice.
a lucky hit.
The latest
There's some
development
more
comes up.
bodies for your breakfast. You can start calling this fucking show Bodies for Breakfast. You fucking go to Al Jazeera and keep up fucking on 24. Oh, God almighty, man. That's what that's going to be all day. You probably can't see that. Yeah. How the fuck do I make you see it? I'm kind of fucking hell, man. Right, I'll translate for me. Can't be asked fixing it. Biden unlikely to accept Putin's invitation for talks on Ukraine before elections. Expert. Well, of course not. It'll be too damaging, man. He'll be looking like he's he doesn't want to be a wartime president, but it'll be looking like he's been defeated. Fire breaks out at a refinery in southern Russia's Rostock region after drone attack. That makes sense. Fuck you, Tassier. Oh, hold on. That's working a wee bit better. You can kind of half read that. Mistakes a path to be what Putin told global media. Fire breaks out at refinery. Ukraine already using US weapons to strike Russia. AP. AP means Asshole Press, Associated Press. That's the French mob. One of the oldest in town, well and respected military operations. BBC D-Day. Sky News D-Day. France 24 D-Day. And fucking let's go live. See what they're saying. Live? Is this still the same thing?
And of course, such actions will finally destroy international relations and undermine international security. Ultimately, if we see those countries being drawn into a war against us, and this is their direct participation in a war against Russia, then we reserve the right to act in the same way. All in all, this is a path to very serious problems.
Well, a marathon of 3 hours.
The Hillsborough disaster, brilliant. I know that. I knew. Press TV woke up one and went, you know what, it's just, I've been really worried about this Hillsborough disaster thing. I think we should cover that.
Namely the Western
I know it. I knew they loved
not just the
1980s football. People in hijabs would have loved going to fucking Hillsborough.
Now, one reality which Vladimir Putin is, as we just had, very
Israel says
clear-eyed
warplanes
about,
hit a mass
is that
compound.
Western-supplied long-range
Some say
missiles
potato, you say potato. Some people say a school. Some people say Hamas
something
compound.
that has been endlessly debated in recent weeks by the media and
Hold on,
politicians.
I'm getting. Oh, hold on, is that? I've got to be sexy, hang on. Say it again, Sam.
About.
Oh, hold on, I've no listened to this mob today yet.
A lot of drug use, but I think there was a lot.
Let's go live now. Live now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Why is it no live now? Ah! Is that just live? Alright, they're going to be doing the D-Day stuff. That makes sense. ABC, they don't even do news, not worth wait. Australia's going to be doing the D-Day stuff as well, I'm going to imagine. Stab in the dark. Boom shakalaka. Nope. They're calling me a liar.
Now, it's a disaster, and it would have been a disaster if I had gone to the police. Mr. Lin has pleaded not guilty to murder, but he concedes he is guilty of destroying evidence by putting the campers' bodies in his trailer and returning to set fire to the remains.
Why is he
Singaporean tone towards China, accusing it of trying to dissuade other countries from attending this peace summit, which is something that China had denied. And analysts are also saying this is something that could potentially complicate China's relations with other countries if they too take on that stronger stance that we had seen from the Ukrainian president over the weekend, even though in the past we had seen Ukraine try to balance its ties carefully with China. So going into these talks, though, it does seem from the readout so far that the talks have been rather cordial and conciliatory, although indications are that China has not changed its position on this upcoming peace summit. Wei Su.
Olivia, of course, the Ukraine delegation led by its deputy foreign minister, and of course, his parallel in China meeting him is China's deputy foreign minister, Sun Weidong, as well. So not top level in terms of both sides. Could there be, you say it's significant, but could there be from this meeting any other major takeaways apart from just keeping talks going?
Wei Su, I think it was very telling, and what we have to do here is to compare how both sides are portraying this meeting. From the Ukrainian side, we heard from Kyiv saying that they made a pitch to China again to attend this upcoming peace summit in Switzerland. But then we also saw the statement from China's foreign ministry, which made no mention of this pitch by the Ukrainian side, no mention of the peace summit, no mention of the criticism that had been launched against hosted by the Ukrainian president. There was one short mention that the two
pronouncing
sides
funny
did
because of their
discuss
accents.
the quote
Remember, I
Ukraine
don't have an
crisis,
accent.
and China
They do.
instead talking more about how it wants to advance cooperation, it's willing to advance cooperation with Ukraine, and how that China-Ukraine ties have continued to develop steadily. So no indication that China is changing its mind on this. And in fact, today,
One
when
China
asked
principle.
about it, the
Do you know
Foreign
what that
Ministry
means?
spokesperson
Do you know what that
continued
means?
to reiterate
Hold
China's
on, stop
position
that. Well,
that
hold on a sec here, Hen. I've just swallowed what that means, right? A one China policy principle means Taiwan. It's Chinese. Hold on, I'm acting like I've not got the internet. Now, they could be just saying that to get shit after the Chiners. Strong possibility. So, if you look at this map, territories controlled by, right, but that's Taiwan there, isn't it? I hope I'm not making a fool of myself. I'm pretty sure, oh, you just can't even see that. There's Taiwan there, isn't it? I believe, unless I'm making an absolutely fool of myself. I hope not. Anywho, that's the One China policy. One China policy refers to a United States policy. Oh, hold on, I'm talking shite. Regarding Taiwan, right? I did know it was regarding Taiwan. Oh, right, aye, this was a thing that America signed in 1972 that said Taiwan is part of China, and they're trying to kind of go back on it. Aye, that's what it is. Right, I just wanted to get a wee bit of clarity on that bad boy there. Oh, that was worthwhile going in here.
Will continue to promote peace and talks in its own way and work together with all
Weird
parties
way
for
though
a
that when
political
China
settlement
policy's
of the
getting brought
Ukrainian
into the
crisis.
Ukraine
And this
thing.
comes, as we know, China has continued to say that it's taking a neutral position on this, even as the US and Europe have tried to get it to use more of its influence, its close relationship with Moscow to try and end this conflict in Ukraine. But it does seem that with regard to this particular peace summit, the needle has not moved with regard to China. Wei Su.
Oh, thanks. That's CNA's China correspondent Olivia Xiong speaking to us there from Beijing.
Cut. No. Action. Come on, you fuck.
Despicable provocations that would make any normal country ashamed of itself. He's vowed never to overlook threats from the country.
북한 정권은 역사의 진보를 거부하고 퇴행의 길을 걸으며 우리의 삶을 위협하고 있습니다.
I'm telling you that your fucking
미사일 발사에
parents
이어
are dead.
최근에는 정상적인 나라라면 부끄러워할
They
수밖에
never
없는
mentioned
비열한
Hazel.
방식의 도발까지 감행했습니다.
Buggery. What's that,
정부는
Devon?
이러한 북한의 위협을 결코 좌시하지 않을 것입니다.
President Yoon vowed to bolster the alliance with the United States while enhancing cooperation with the international community in order to ensure the safety of his people. He was speaking at a Memorial Day ceremony which commemorates citizens who died while serving the country. This comes amid high tensions after South Korea fully suspended the military peace pact it held with North Korea, and that was since 2018, earlier this week. Meanwhile, activists and North Korean defectors in South Korea have launched balloons across the border. in response to hundreds of rubbish-filled balloons from the north last week. Defectors say that their balloons are carrying 200,000 anti-Kim Jong-un leaflets, 5,000 USB flash drives containing K-pop music and K-dramas, as well as thousands of $1 bills.
Oh, that's why that K-pop gets promoted, because it's against China and fucking Korea.
Leader for not offering an apology over the balloons that were sent earlier to the south. Pyongyang says its balloon blitz was in retaliation for previous missives sent by activists in South Korea. It called off the campaign on Sunday, but warned it would restart if more balloons were sent over from the south. Meanwhile, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has accused Pyongyang of, quote, despicable provocation that would make any normal country ashamed of itself. Uncertainty that wage rises will be sustained, leading a key bank of Japan. Now, China's National Chip Fund could raise more than $47.5 billion as the country races to close a technology gap with the United States.
Land of the Thunder Dragon.
This is the most interesting one of them I've ever came across. They'll be D-Daying it all day. Talk TV, whatever's left of it, their YouTube feeds don't even fucking work anymore. They're that pathetic. This live one just keeps fucking losing.
Yeah, well, it keeps skipping. I've read several stories on this. It seems that the young in Europe are moving more to these far-right parties, moving further right, whereas the young in the UK are moving left. And it's interesting when you look at the issues to deal with illegal migration into the countries. A lot of countries in Europe are looking at
30 seconds.
UK's Rwanda policy and going, we
me.
need something
They're saying
like
they're
that.
going to copy it.
Talking about the price of bananas.
There's a poll also that asking about one of the Labour Party's intentions, which is to lower the voting age to 16. Something that's been done.
See,
by
those
the
are the
SNP
people that
in
tell you
Scotland,
never believe the polls.
16 and 17-year-olds to vote.
Well,
I've got a 17-year-old who's
constantly
absolutely
telling you
gutted the
about
election is in
polls.
November, when her birthday is. She was hoping she's as well in. Poor child.
See?
Has to listen to
the live thing,
about
doesn't he?
politics all the time.
It's going to prove me to be a liar and
I
work.
still don't think she should vote because she's 17. Clear, they don't think that that 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. Why on earth does anyone think this is a good idea? Unless you're just trying to, shift the vote.
Pish. I'm going to even stop trying, to be quite honest. It's a waste of my bandwidth. Alright, let's see if the Chiners... No, I am not agreeing to your China, man. I don't think this is... It'll fuck that for a game of soldiers. Have a wee look at CNN, dozen killed. That's lovely. Russian welcomes Iran's bid to gain observer status at EU. What the fuck is that? The something Economic Forum. Eurasian Economic Union. What? Eurasian... It's the EU? Different... Don't tell me there's different languages. Who was be stupid enough to speak anything other than Glaswegian? Alright, well that's just that's the new economic blocks of the World War materialising. Allies back. Putin warns Russia could provide weapons to strike West. Aye, if you fucking if you give Ukraine weapons that will hit Moscow, we will strike back. Russia could provide weapons to strike West? That doesn't make sense. Provide weapons to who? Provide weapons to who? Russia could provide weapons to themselves? Hold on a sec, I did some Orwellian fucking shit. Putin warns Russia, Putin is Russia, Russia could provide weapons to strike West. What? What the fuck? Russian President Putin has warned that Moscow could arm countries with a view to attacking Western targets. That is not what he said at all. He said he'd start hitting places that are inside Ukraine that are... That's a good example of how that was out today. 0014 BS. I think that was an hour ago, or maybe even a few minutes ago. I'm not sure. I can't work out British Standard Time. We're sitting here at 11:15. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. All right, just do it this morning. That's me being stupid. Several countries, including the United States, they strike targets. Such action could lead to very serious problems. Someone thinks it's possible to supply such weapons to a war zone, attack our territory, and create problems for us. Then we don't have the right to supply weapons of the same class to regions of the world where there would be strikes on sensitive facilities of those countries. He was talking about the... Well, anyway. That is, the response can be asymmetric. We will think about it. They do not specify which countries Moscow could supply weapons to themselves. They didn't anyway. Mr. Putin singled out Germany, which recently told Ukraine it was free to hit targets inside Russia with long-range German-made weapons. When they say there will be more missiles which will hit targets on Russian territory, this definitely destroys Russian-German relations, Mr. Putin says, which were actually quite good before the EU and America fucked up, the rest of the EU and all that fucked it. Biden's given Ukraine permission to use American weapons to strike targets in Russia, but only near that region. The White House said. Well, I thought it was meant to be against air defences and stuff like that. Ukraine has used US weapons to strike in Russia in recent days. A US senator and Western official told the AP on Wednesday. That was the story we were reading. I'm pretty sure we came across that. I lie! Oh, there it's there. And now I forgot what the fuck I was reading. Fierce fighting is raged on. Lord Cameron says Ukraine can do whatever they fucking want. Ukraine said North Korean missiles have been used. There's the Chinese Connect in it. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, the Chinese Connect. Russia launched a full-scale invasion. It wasn't a full-scale invasion, they invaded regions in the east. In fact, first they locked down Crimea where there are already military forces in there because it was their military that ruled that peninsula and had been for some time, with agreements in place that had not finished, but the West came in and just ripped them up. But don't believe me. Mr. Putin was speaking to foreign journalists. He also warned the West. It was wrong to assume. Didn't hear that on RT, but hey ho. When asked Reuters about the risk of nuclear escalation. Right, this is on the BBC and they're quoting Reuters. Go to the source. I think I've... Okay, updated an hour ago. Putin says could deploy missiles in striking distance of West. Right? See how easy, see how much that the BBC have spun that and took fucking quotes out of context and shit. You know how many people bouncing about the and the BBC are quoting Reuters. The BBC is the spin. The BBC is the British intelligence getting a hold of the news and going brrr, and doing what they want, spinning it, putting it through the wash. Putin says could deploy missiles. Putin wishing right summary. So Putin. Trying to see. Just weird how this shit works. Oh, that is for me. Putin in his first face-to-face meeting said the West was wrong to assume Russia would never use nuclear weapons, and said the Kremlin's nuclear doctrine should not be taken lightly. Alright. Touche, BBC, you bastards. But at least I'm checking it out. What's doing here? We have nuclear doctrine. Their own quote marks. They thought that Russia wanted to attack NATO. Have you gone completely crazy? Well, they had that bit on RT. That's a bit ambiguous and could be taken a million and different ways and could be translated a million and one different ways. But yeah, I fucking have. Oh, just another manic Thursday. I thought it was Monday. But what a fun day. Anyway, just another manic Monday. So I'm going to do the off. Have a nice... Oh, hold on, I'm going to have a wee look. Anybody want to get involved in the vote? Do it now. What's worse? Hitting somebody with a milkshake, sharing clips of grannies bleeding out and dying in the street, as pretty much are doing it live almost. And it's 15 votes in, 80% thinks. Sharing video of grannies bleeding out in the street on social medias that have millions and billions of followers all around the world, for politicians, all the rest of it, is worse than hitting somebody with a milkshake. Both retarded, both very much retarded, but definitely sharing the clips of people bleeding out comes out way on top. So I'm going to go out and see what I can do with the rest of the day. Have a nice one, you all. Clip loves grannies. And I'm the king of Scotland, mate. I do love. Who's been sharing granny videos? Tommy Robinson, mate. When that old woman gets stabbed at a bus stop down in London, within a couple of hours or something, he's sharing the video of it on his social medias, man. You know, probably before even family and friends had been informed. Probably before the body had even been identified. So before the body's been identified, his billions and millions, and it was all over Twitter and all that shit. And in today's age, it's really hard to fucking miss those sort of things. And he obviously was doing it because it was an Abdul fucking brown person on boat that done it. So he thought it was big and clever to share it. So, that's the end of the poll. Yeah, that's it up. Join again tomorrow. Everybody, stick a wee thumbs up, sub up, bell up, tell your friends, family, foes, help the channel and the show grow. Remember, this is political satire entertainment for chavs and Neds alike. Get it? Got it. Good. Jeez. Clips. And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell.